Hello, friends. Welcome to the Sleep Aliens. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. Have you ever had that feeling that something is wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on it? Your body's cells are screaming danger, but your brain is telling you to stay calm. Harlan Vesey felt exactly that on February 14, 2019, at 2:47 a.m., while driving his material truck on the Dalton Highway. The Dalton Highway is unlike other roads. It's a 414-mile stretch of gravel and ice that runs parallel to the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, stretching from Fairbanks to Deadhorse. Most people call this road the Hall Road. Harlan called it his office. He had been transporting materials to pump stations for 11 years, knew every curve, every pothole, every spot where the wind blew hardest. He could drive this road in his sleep. Some nights, he almost did. But this night was different. Harlan had left Pump Station 5 around midnight. His truck loaded with replacement parts and his thermos filled with coffee so strong it could strip paint. The temperature read minus 32 degrees, not counting wind chill. The kind of cold that makes your lungs hurt when you breathe. The kind that freezes diesel fuel if you're not careful. He was making good time. The road stretched out before him in his headlights, white and endless. Snow piled high on either side, creating walls that seemed to close in the further north he went. The only sounds were the rumble of his engine, the crunch of snow under his tires, and the occasional crackle of his CB radio picking up fragments of conversation from other drivers somewhere out in the dark. That's when he saw it. At first, Harlan thought it was the Northern Lights. The Aurora Borealis puts on quite a show up there, especially in winter. Green curtains dancing across the sky, sometimes purple, sometimes red. Beautiful if you're into that sort of thing. Harlan had seen it 1,000 times. This wasn't that. This was a line. A perfectly straight line of blue light, maybe 100 feet long, hanging in the sky about a mile ahead of him. It wasn't moving like the aurora. It was just there, solid, like someone had taken a laser pointer and drawn a line across the darkness. Harlan slowed down. Not because he wanted to, but because his foot eased off the gas without him thinking about it. Something about that light made his stomach drop, made the coffee in his belly turn sour. Probably ice crystals, he muttered to himself, light reflecting off ice crystals in the air. But he didn't believe it. Ice crystals don't make straight lines. Ice crystals don't glow that particular shade of electric blue, and ice crystals definitely don't make you feel like you're being watched. He kept driving. What else was he going to do? Turn around? There was nothing behind him for 50 miles except empty road and frozen tundra. Ahead was Pump Station 4, his destination, where a warm bed and a hot meal waited. He just had to get past this weird light. As he got closer, the line started to move. It didn't float or drift. It bent, the straight line curved, like someone was flexing it in the middle. Then it straightened again. Then it curved the other way, back and forth, wavering. Harlan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His breath came faster, fogging up the inside of his windshield even though the heater was on full blast. The temperature gauge on his dashboard flickered. Dropped 10 degrees, 20, 30. "Come on, don't do this to me," he said to the truck. "Not now." The engine coughed. The headlights dimmed. Every warning light on the dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. Red, yellow, orange. All of them screaming that something was wrong. The truck was still moving, but it felt wrong. Like driving through mud instead of snow. The steering wheel fought him. pulling to the left, then the right. The wavering blue line was directly above him now, so close he could see it through his windshield without looking up. That's when his CB radio came to life. Static at first. Then a voice. Male. Clear as day despite the distance and interference. "Vesey, you there?" Harlan grabbed the handset, relief flooding through him. Another driver. Someone else who might be seeing this. "Yeah, I'm here," Harlan said. "You seeing what I'm seeing?" Silence. Just static. Then the voice came back. "Vesey, you there?" The exact same words. The exact same tone, like a recording. Harlan's blood went cold. Colder than the air outside. Colder than the ice on the road. "Who is this?" he said into the radio. "Vesey, you there?" "Stop it. Who are you?" "You there? There?" The last word echoed, repeated, layered over itself until it wasn't one voice anymore but dozens, all asking the same question in perfect unison. Then silence. The blue line shot straight up into the sky so fast Harlan didn't see it move. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone, just gone, like it had never existed. His truck's engine roared back to life. The heater kicked on. The dashboard lights went back to normal. Everything was fine. Everything was normal. Except Harlan's hands were shaking so badly he had to pull over. He sat there on the side of the Hall Road, engine idling, staring at the spot in the sky where the light had been. His heart hammered in his chest. His mouth was dry. He tried to pick up his thermos but nearly dropped it twice before giving up. He sat there for 20 minutes before he felt steady enough to drive again. When he finally made it to Pump Station 4, he didn't tell anyone what happened. What would he say? That he saw a blue line in the sky and his radio started repeating his name? They'd think the cold had gotten to him. They'd think he'd been out there too long. They'd think he was cracking up. So he kept his mouth shut. Unloaded his cargo. Filled out his paperwork. Drank bad coffee in the break room and made small talk with the night shift guys. Acted like everything was normal. But when he climbed back into his truck for the return trip south, he noticed something he hadn't before. His dashboard clock was wrong. According to the clock, it was 5:13 a.m. But according to his watch, it was 6:47 a.m., an hour and 34 minutes just missing. Gone. Harlan Vesey had been driving the Hall Road for 11 years. He knew every curve, every dip. He knew exactly how long it took to get from Pump Station 5 to Pump Station 4. It should have taken him 2 hours and 40 minutes. It had taken him 4 hours and 14 minutes. And he had no memory of where that extra time went. 3 weeks later, Tessa Halberg saw the light. Tessa wasn't a truck driver. She was a pipeline technician, one of the people who kept the Trans-Alaska Pipeline running through the worst weather on Earth. She'd been working the pipeline for 7 years, stationed at Pump Station 3, and she loved her job. Most people couldn't handle the isolation, the cold, the darkness. Tessa thrived on it. On March 7, 2019, she was doing a routine inspection run. Her snowmobile hummed beneath her as she followed the pipeline north, checking for ice buildup, looking for any signs of damage or stress. It was just after midnight. Clear sky, no wind. Temperature sitting at minus 28 degrees. Perfect conditions. She was about 12 miles from the station when she saw it. A blue light in the distance, maybe half a mile away, just hovering there above the pipeline. Tessa stopped her snowmobile. Killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. The light wasn't moving. It was just a point of blue glow, about the size of a car, hanging in the air maybe 50 feet off the ground. Tessa pulled out her binoculars and focused on it. That's when she saw it wasn't a point of light at all. It was a line, a straight, horizontal line of blue light, turned sideways so she was looking at it end-on, like looking at a wire stretched across the sky, except this wire was glowing with its own light, As she watched, the line started to bend, slowly at first. The middle section curved downward, forming an arc. Then it straightened, then it curved upward, then sideways, wavering, flexing, like someone was playing with it. Tessa's first thought was aircraft, maybe a helicopter running some kind of survey lights. But there was no sound, no rotor wash disturbing the snow, just silence and that impossible blue line bending and straightening in the dark. Her second thought was the aurora, but the aurora doesn't do this. The aurora flows and dances. This thing moved with purpose, deliberate, controlled. Her third thought was run, but she didn't run. She was too fascinated, too curious, too stubborn. This was her pipeline, her territory, her job to know what was happening out here. She pulled out her radio. "Station 3, this is Halberg. You reading me?" Static. "Station 3, come in." More static. Then, breaking through the interference, a voice. "Halberg, this is Station 3. Go ahead." Relief flooded through her. "Yeah, I'm about 12 miles north on inspection route. I'm seeing something weird out here. Can you confirm any aircraft in the area?" "Negative on aircraft. Weather's too clear tonight. What are you seeing?" Tessa kept her binoculars trained on the blue line. It was still wavering, still flexing. "There's a light, blue, hovering over the pipeline. It's hard to explain. It's moving in a really strange way. Can you describe it better?" "It's like a line. A straight line of blue light, but it keeps bending, like someone's flexing it. You know what? I'm going to move closer and get some pictures." "Halberg, that might not be—" The radio cut out. Just dead air. Tessa lowered the radio and looked at it. The power indicator was still on. She should be transmitting, but there was nothing. No static, no voices. Just silence. She looked back at the blue line. It was closer, much closer. Tessa hadn't moved. Her snowmobile was still exactly where she'd stopped it. But the light had closed the distance between them. What had been half a mile away was now maybe 100 yards. And it wasn't just a line anymore. The line had split, separated into multiple segments, each one glowing that same electric blue. They hovered in a loose formation, spread out horizontally like rungs on a ladder. 6 of them, 7, 8. She counted 9 separate lines of light, all of them flexing and bending independently. Beautiful. Terrifying. Wrong. Tessa's hand moved to her snowmobile's ignition. She should start it. She should leave. Every instinct she had was screaming at her to get out of there. But she couldn't move. Not because she was paralyzed, not because she was frozen in fear. She just didn't want to move. She wanted to watch, needed to watch. Like the lights were the most important thing in the world and looking away would be wrong. The closest line bent downward. The tip of it touched the snow. Where it touched, the snow glowed. Blue light spread across the white surface like spilled water, radiating outward in perfect circles. The light on the snow was bright enough to hurt her eyes, bright enough to cast shadows, bright enough that she could see every individual snowflake illuminated in crystal clarity. Then the line lifted, rose back into the air. The glow on the snow faded, and Tessa realized she was standing next to her snowmobile instead of sitting on it. She didn't remember getting off, didn't remember walking around to the side, but there she was standing in knee-deep snow, her gloved hand resting on the seat, staring at the lights. How long had she been standing there? She looked at her watch. The digital display flickered, showed 12:47 a.m., then 1:23 a.m., then 11:15 p.m. The numbers scrambled, cycling through impossible times before finally settling on 2:34 a.m. 2 hours. She'd lost 2 hours. Fear cut through the fascination. Real fear. the kind that makes your heart race and your hands shake. Tessa grabbed her radio again, pressed the transmit button. Station 3, this is Halberg. Emergency. I need immediate extraction. My position is... The voice that came back wasn't from Station 3. It was her own voice. Station 3, this is Halberg. Tessa's finger came off the transmit button like she'd been burned. Station 3, this is Halberg. Her voice again. Exactly the same tone, the same inflection. Playing back at her like a recording. Emergency. I need immediate extraction. Stop it, Tessa whispered. My position is... Stop! Position is... The word echoed, repeated, layered over itself until it wasn't a word anymore, just a sound, just noise. Just her voice saying the same thing over and over in a chorus of terror. Tessa threw the radio into the snow. She jumped on her snowmobile, hit the ignition. Nothing. She tried again. The engine turned over but wouldn't catch. The battery was fine. The fuel was fine. Everything should work. The blue line started moving toward her. Not fast. Almost gentle. Drifting through the air like kelp underwater. But getting closer. Closer. Tessa abandoned the snowmobile. Started running. Her boots sank deep in the snow with every step. The cold air burned in her lungs. She didn't have her bearings, didn't know which direction was which, just ran away from the lights. She made it maybe 50 yards before she realized the lights weren't following her. They were above her. All 9 lines hovered directly overhead, arranged in a circle, looking down at her like she was in the bottom of a well. They were close enough now that she could see details. The light wasn't uniform. It had texture, depth, like looking into deep water where the light gets bluer the farther down you look. And in that blue depth, she saw shapes. Not clear shapes, not definite, just the suggestion of structures, angles, geometry that didn't quite make sense. Like looking at a building through rippling water and not being able to tell exactly what you're seeing. Tessa stopped running. There was nowhere to run to. She was surrounded. The lights had her. She waited for something to happen, for the lights to do something, touch her, take her, end her. But they just hovered there, watching, waiting. Then they started to vibrate. The blue light flickered, pulsed. A rhythm, fast at first, then slower, then fast again. Like a heartbeat that couldn't find its pace. And with each pulse, Tessa felt it in her chest, in her bones. A vibration that made her teeth ache and her vision blur. The snow beneath her feet started to glow. Blue light spread out from where she stood, radiating in every direction. She looked down and saw her shadow cast in 9 different directions from the 9 lights above. The shadows overlapped, merged. Created a darkness in the center where she stood that was blacker than the surrounding night. She closed her eyes. Whatever was going to happen, she didn't want to see it. The vibration got stronger, louder. No, not louder. She could feel it, but couldn't hear it. A silent thunder that rattled her skull and made her inner ear scream. She fell to her knees, pressed her gloved hands over her ears even though she knew it wouldn't help. Then it stopped. The vibration, the pulse, the light, all of it. Just gone. Tessa opened her eyes. She was kneeling in the snow 12 miles from Station 3. Her snowmobile sat 30 yards away, exactly where she'd left it. Her radio lay in the snow where she'd thrown it. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. The sky was empty. She got to her feet. Her legs shook, her hands trembled. She retrieved her radio from the snow, brushed off the ice, pressed the transmit button. Station 3, this is Halberg. Come in. Silence. Then static, then a voice. Normal, human, real. Halberg, where the hell have you been? We've been trying to reach you for 3 hours. Are you okay?" 3 hours. Tessa looked at her watch. It showed 3:47 a.m. She'd left the station at midnight. The inspection route should have taken 45 minutes. "I'm fine," she said into the radio. Her voice sounded far away, like someone else was speaking. "I'm coming back." "Copy that. You sure you're okay?" "Yeah, just had some equipment issues. I'm fine." But she wasn't fine. Because when she walked back to her snowmobile and looked at the snow around it, she saw them. Footprints. Her footprints, leading away from the snowmobile toward where she'd been running. She could see where she'd fallen to her knees, where the lights had surrounded her. But there were other prints too. Small ones. Narrow, not human, not animal. Just other. They formed a circle around the spot where she'd knelt. Perfect spacing, evenly distributed like someone had stood around her in a ring while she'd had her eyes closed. Tessa didn't tell anyone what happened that night. She filed her inspection report, listed it as routine, no issues, no anomalies, everything normal. But she kept her radio's data log, the digital recorder that automatically saved every transmission. She listened to it later, alone in her room at the station. Headphones on, door locked. The conversation with Station 3 was there. Her emergency call was there. So was the playback of her own voice. But it wasn't just playback. There were words in it that she'd never said. Her voice, but not her words. Fragments of sentences she didn't remember speaking. Numbers that meant nothing to her. Coordinates, maybe, or codes, or something else entirely, and underneath all of it, barely audible beneath the static and the repetition, was another sound. Breathing. Not human breathing. Something slower, deeper. Rhythmic, but wrong. Like lungs working too efficiently, pulling in air and pushing it out with mechanical precision. Tessa deleted the file, erased the backup, threw away the storage drive. She told herself it was equipment malfunction. Radio interference. Atmospheric conditions, something rational. Something explainable. She told herself she imagined the footprints. She told herself the missing time was exhaustion. She told herself the lights were natural phenomena. She told herself a lot of things, but she never did another solo inspection run at night. The third incident happened 2 months later. Marcus Nelson was a security contractor working out of Deadhorse, the northern terminus of the Hall Road. His job was simple. Drive the pipeline route, check for signs of tampering or damage, make sure nobody was messing with the infrastructure. It was boring work, peaceful. He liked it. On May 19, 2019, he was on his usual patrol route around 1:30 a.m. His truck had a modified heater that could keep the cab warm even when the temperature outside hit -40. He had good music on the stereo, strong coffee in his travel mug. Everything was comfortable. Then his truck's headlights caught something on the pipeline. A shape. Humanoid. Standing on top of the pipeline about 30 feet off the ground. Marcus hit the brakes. His truck slid on the ice before coming to a stop. He grabbed his spotlight, mounted on the driver's side door, and aimed it at the figure. It was still there. Not a person. Too tall, too thin. The proportions were wrong. The arms too long, reaching almost to the knees. The head too large. No visible clothing. No gear, no safety harness. Just standing there on the curved surface of the pipeline like gravity was optional. Marcus's hand moved to his radio. He should call this in, report an intruder, get backup. But he didn't, because the figure turned to look at him. It didn't move its body, just the head, rotated on the neck with a smooth mechanical precision that made Marcus's stomach lurch. And when it looked at him, he saw the eyes. No whites, no iris, just black. Completely black. like looking into deep wells, like looking into nothing. The figure raised one arm, not in greeting, not in threat, just lifted it, extended it toward Marcus's truck. The hand, if you could call it a hand, had too many fingers. 7, 8. Marcus couldn't count them. They moved independently, undulating like tentacles testing the air. Then the blue light appeared. It started from the extended hand, a line of glowing blue light that shot out into the darkness, extending away from the figure, away from the pipeline, stretching out over the tundra. It didn't stop, just kept going, kept extending. Miles of light drawing itself across the landscape in a perfectly straight line. Then it bent. The distant end of the light curved downward, touched the ground. The moment it made contact, more lights appeared. 5 of them, 6, 10. All different lengths. All that same electric blue. They spread out from the point of contact like roots spreading through soil. Marcus couldn't look away. The lights were beautiful, mesmerizing. They pulsed and flexed, creating patterns in the air, geometric shapes that assembled themselves and dissolved and reassembled into new configurations. It was like watching someone write in a language he didn't understand. His truck's engine died. All the lights on the dashboard went out. The heater shut off, the stereo cut to silence. Even his spotlight dimmed and failed. The only light was the blue glow from outside. Marcus tried the ignition. Nothing. Tried his radio. Dead. Tried his cell phone. No signal. Nothing worked. He was alone in a dead truck in the middle of nowhere with something inhuman standing on the pipeline and lights doing impossible things in the sky. He should have been terrified. He was terrified. But underneath the fear was something else. Curiosity, wonder, a desperate need to understand what he was seeing. The figure on the pipeline climbed down. Not carefully, not slowly. It just descended, like walking down stairs that only it could see. Its movements were fluid but wrong. Joints bending in ways human joints don't bend. Limbs extending further than human limbs extend. By the time it reached the ground, it was less than 20 feet from Marcus's truck. That's when Marcus smelled it. Ozone, sharp and metallic. The smell of the air after a lightning strike. It was so strong it made his eyes water, made his nose burn. He could taste it on his tongue. The figure approached the truck. Each step it took left prints in the snow. Not footprints. The impressions were too small, too narrow, like someone walking on their toes, or something with feet that were more like hands. It reached the driver's side door, pressed one of those 2 long hands against the window. The glass fogged instantly. Not from temperature, from something else. A chemical reaction. An energy transfer. The fog spread from the point of contact in crystalline patterns, fractals of ice forming on the surface. Through the frosted glass, Marcus could see those black eyes. Closer now. Large. Unblinking. Looking at him with an intensity that made him feel naked. Exposed. Like it was seeing not just his body, but his thoughts. His memories. Everything he'd ever been or done laid bare for examination. The figure opened its mouth. Marcus didn't know it had a mouth until it opened. The jaw split horizontally in the middle of where a face should be. No teeth, no tongue. Just a dark opening that went too far back into the head. And from that opening came sound, not words, not language, just sound. A low, frequency hum that Marcus felt more than heard. It vibrated through the truck's frame, through the seat, through his chest, like standing next to a massive subwoofer at a concert, but worse, this sound didn't just move air, it moved him, shook something loose inside him that shouldn't be loose. His vision blurred. The world tilted. He grabbed the steering wheel to steady himself, but his hands felt wrong. Numb, like they belonged to someone else. The figure pulled its hand away from the window. The frosted patterns remained. It pointed back toward the pipeline, then up at the sky where the blue lights continued their dance. Marcus understood, not with words, not with thoughts, just knew. The way you know things in dreams. Direct, certain, undeniable. They wanted him to see. This was intentional, a demonstration, a message. He was being shown something, being told something, but he didn't know what. The figure turned and walked back toward the pipeline, climbed back up, stood in the same place it had been before, and one by one the blue lights began to retract, pulling back toward the figure like measuring tapes being rewound, faster and faster until they were gone, absorbed back into the extended hand. The hand lowered. The figure remained standing there for a moment longer. Then it bent forward at the waist, impossibly far forward, far enough that the head hung down below the level of the knees, and stepped off the pipeline. It didn't fall, it walked, straight down the side of the curved structure, defying gravity, until it reached the ground. Then it walked into the darkness beyond Marcus's headlights. 3 steps, 4, 5, gone. Marcus's truck roared back to life. Every system came back online simultaneously. Dashboard lights, heater, stereo. The sudden noise made him jump, made his heart, which had been beating fast before, now hammer so hard he thought it might break his ribs. He sat there shaking, breathing hard, trying to process what he'd just witnessed. His radio crackled to life. Unit 7, this is Dead Horse Dispatch. What's your status? You missed your check-in. Marcus grabbed the handset. His voice came out rough, dry. Dispatch, this is Unit 7. I'm fine. Just had some engine trouble. I'm mobile now. Copy that, Unit 7. You need assistance? Negative. I'm good. He wasn't good. He was the opposite of good. But what was he supposed to say? That he'd seen something standing on the pipeline? That lights had come out of its hand. That reality itself had bent around him for how long? Marcus looked at his dashboard clock. 4:23 a.m. He'd started his patrol at 1:30. Check-ins were every hour. He'd missed 3 of them. 3 hours just gone. He checked his mileage. His truck's odometer showed he'd driven 17 miles more than he should have. But he had no memory of moving, no memory of driving. He'd been sitting in the same spot the entire time, hadn't he? He put the truck in gear and continued his patrol, drove the rest of the route on autopilot, logged everything as normal in his report, finished his shift, went home to his apartment in Dead Horse. But when he got there and took off his jacket, he noticed something. His hands. The palms of both hands had marks on them, small, circular, like someone had pressed something against his skin. The marks were perfectly symmetrical, mirror images of each other. 4 circles on each palm, arranged in a curved line, like fingerprints, but not human fingerprints. The marks didn't hurt, didn't itch, just there, visible, real. Marcus tried washing them off, used soap, used rubbing alcohol, used everything he had. The marks didn't fade. He wore gloves for the next week, told people he'd burned his hands on hot coffee. Eventually, the marks did fade, slowly, taking almost 3 months to disappear completely. But Marcus Nelson never forgot them. Never forgot that night. Never forgot the figure standing on the pipeline and the blue lights spreading across the landscape, and the 3 hours he couldn't account for. He started asking around, careful questions to other security contractors, other drivers, pipeline workers, anyone who spent time out there in the dark. Some people looked at him like he was crazy. Some people changed the subject real quick. But a few, just a few, got this look in their eyes, this recognition, this understanding. And one old-timer, a guy who'd been working the pipeline since it was built in the 1970s, pulled Marcus aside in a bar in Fairbanks and said, "You saw the blue lights, didn't you?" Marcus nodded. The old-timer took a long drink of his beer, stared at the bottle. Quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I've been seeing them for 40 years. They're not from around here, not from anywhere on this planet. They come and go. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows what they want. Government knows about them, has reports going back decades. But what are they going to do? Tell people there's things out there we don't understand? Things that violate every law of physics we have? Things that can make time skip and engines fail and grown men forget entire hours of their lives?" He finished his beer, stood up to leave, put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "My advice? Don't talk about it. Don't dwell on it. Don't go looking for answers because there aren't any. What you saw was real. That's all you need to know. It was real. And if you're lucky, you won't see it again." Marcus took that advice. Stopped asking questions. Stopped looking for patterns. Finished out his contract and moved south. Got a job in Anchorage doing building security. Normal work. Indoor work. No more pipeline. No more night patrols. No more darkness. But sometimes, late at night, he looks up at the sky. And he wonders if they're still out there. Still walking on pipelines and bending reality and touching people with hands that leave marks we can't explain. He wonders what they wanted him to see. He wonders if he'll ever know. The incidents continued throughout 2019. Small reports, strange lights, missing time, equipment failures. All along the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. All late at night. All involving that same electric blue glow. The reports never made the news, never got official attention, just got filed away in company databases and government archives, marked as equipment malfunction, atmospheric phenomena, driver fatigue. But the people who saw them knew better. They knew what they saw was real. They knew there are things out there in the dark that we don't understand. Things that watch us. Things that study us. Things that bend reality like it's nothing. The pipeline still runs. Trucks still drive the haul road. Security still patrols at night. Life goes on. But now and then, someone sees the blue lights. And their life changes forever. The thing about driving in an Arctic blizzard is that you stop trusting your eyes after the first hour. The snow doesn't fall, it attacks. Horizontal, violent, turning your headlights into useless cones of white static. You can't see the road, can't see the sky, can't see anything except the endless swirl of white that makes you feel like you're flying through space instead of crawling along at 15 miles per hour. Jude Raskin had been driving through this particular blizzard for 3 hours and 40 minutes. He knew the exact time because he'd been checking his dashboard clock every 5 minutes, praying for dawn, knowing it wouldn't come for another 2 hours at least. He was a fuel hauler, had been for 6 years. His job was simple. Drive tanker trucks full of diesel from Fairbanks to the various pump stations along the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. Keep the generators running, keep the heat on, keep the pipeline flowing. Essential work, dangerous work. The kind of work most people wouldn't do for twice the pay. But Jude didn't mind. He liked the solitude, liked the challenge, liked knowing that entire communities depended on drivers like him to keep fuel flowing through the winter. Made him feel important, useful, like he mattered. Tonight, though, he was starting to regret his career choices. The blizzard had come out of nowhere. Weather report said light snow, maybe some wind, nothing serious. But weather reports in Alaska are suggestions, not facts. By the time Jude was 30 miles north of Pump Station 6, visibility had dropped to near zero and the temperature had plummeted to minus 32 degrees. Wind chill made it feel like minus 50. His wipers were struggling. Ice built up faster than the blades could clear it. Every few minutes, he had to stop, get out into the screaming wind and physically scrape the windshield clear. His gloves were good, rated for minus 40, but even they couldn't keep his fingers from going numb after 30 seconds of exposure. He was starting to think about pulling over, finding a safe spot to wait it out. His truck had enough fuel to idle for 12 hours. He had food, water, emergency blankets. He could survive, but pulling over in a whiteout was risky. Another vehicle could hit you. Snow could bury you. You could end up stuck for days. And Pump Station 4 was expecting this fuel delivery. They were running low. If he didn't get there soon, they'd have to start shutting down non-essential systems. So Jude kept driving, hands tight on the wheel, eyes straining against the white, following the vague suggestion of road beneath his tires and hoping he didn't drift off into a ditch. That's when he saw it, a point of light. Small, orange-yellow, steady, off to his right, maybe 50 yards away. At first he thought it was another vehicle, someone else stupid enough to be out in this weather. But the light wasn't moving, just sitting there in the swirling white. Constant, unwavering. Jude slowed down even more. His truck crept forward. The light stayed where it was. As he got closer, he expected it to resolve into something recognizable. Taillights, hazard lights, a reflector, something. But it didn't change. The light remained exactly the same size, same brightness, same color. A perfect circle of orange-yellow glow about the size of a basketball, hanging in the air right at the edge of where his headlights could reach. That wasn't right. Light doesn't work that way. Light spreads, diffuses, gets bigger or smaller depending on distance. This light just existed. Same size whether he was 50 yards away or 30 yards away or 10 yards away. Jude brought his truck to a complete stop, left the engine running, grabbed his flashlight from the door pocket and shined it towards the glow. His flashlight beam hit the light and stopped. Didn't illuminate anything around it. Didn't reflect back. Just ended at the surface of the glow like hitting a wall. "What the hell?" Jude muttered. He reached for his CB radio, keyed the mic. "This is Fuel 6 northbound to Station 4. Anyone reading me?" Static, just static. The storm was playing hell with radio signals. He tried again. "Any units in the area, this is Fuel 6. I've got a situation here, seeing some kind of light on the roadside that I can't identify. Can anyone confirm visual?" More static. Then, breaking through the interference, a voice. Male. Tired. "Fuel 6, this is Maintenance 2. What's your 20? Relief flooded through Jude. Another driver, someone else out here. "I'm about 45 miles north of Station 6, maybe 15 miles south of Station 4. Hard to tell in this soup. You seeing anything weird out there?" Define weird. "There's a light, orange, just sitting on the side of the road, not moving, not changing, just there." Silence. Then, "Fuel 6, I'm about 20 miles northeast of your position. Not seeing any lights except my own." Could be a road marker reflecting? No. This is different. It's... Jude stopped. Through his windshield, he could see the glow more clearly now that he wasn't moving. It wasn't sitting on the ground. It was hovering, maybe 3 feet off the snow. Perfectly level. Perfectly still despite the wind that was strong enough to rock his 18,000-pound truck. "It's floating," Jude said into the radio. "Say again?" "The light. It's not on the ground. It's floating in the air." Longer silence this time. "Fuel 6, when's the last time you slept?" "I'm not hallucinating." I'm looking right at it. Okay, I believe you. Probably some kind of atmospheric thing. Ball lightning, maybe, swamp gas. There's no swamp within 500 miles. Ice crystals reflecting light weird. Look, the storm's doing crazy things. I've seen some strange stuff tonight, too. Lights in the clouds. Weird colors. Just keep moving. Don't stop. You stop in this weather, you might not start again. Good advice. Sensible advice. But Jude couldn't stop staring at the light. Something about it was wrong. Not just the way it hovered or the way it stayed the same size, something deeper. Something that made his stomach twist and his mouth go dry. A primal warning that he was looking at something he shouldn't be looking at. Copy that, Maintenance 2. I'm moving on. Smart. Stay safe out there. Jude put the truck in gear, started rolling forward, kept his eyes on the road, or what he could see of it through the blizzard. The glow stayed in his peripheral vision. Still there, still hovering, still wrong. He drove past it, watched it in his driver's side mirror until the snow swallowed it up. 2 miles later, he saw another one. Same orange-yellow color. Same size. Same impossible steadiness. This one was on his left, slightly closer to the road. Maybe 30 yards away. Jude's hands tightened on the wheel. His heart started beating faster. 1 weird light was strange. 2 was a pattern. He grabbed the CB again. Maintenance 2, you still out there? Still here, Fuel 6. I'm seeing another light. Same as before, different location. Where? 47 miles north of Station 6, left side of the road. I'm nowhere near there, can't confirm. But hey, maybe they're marking the road. Emergency services could have put out some kind of beacons. In the middle of a blizzard? Stranger things have happened. Jude wanted to believe that, wanted it to be something rational. But he'd been driving this route for 6 years. He knew every marker, every sign, every landmark. There weren't supposed to be any lights here. He kept driving, passed the second light, watched it disappear in his mirror. 3 miles later, another light. Right side. 2 miles after that, 2 lights, one on each side of the road. Perfectly symmetrical. Same distance from the pavement. Same height above the snow. Jude's breath came faster. His palms were sweating inside his gloves despite the cold. This wasn't random. This wasn't natural. These lights were placed, arranged, like someone was marking a path or creating a corridor. He tried the radio again. Got nothing but static. Tried his cell phone. No signal. He was alone out here. Just him and his truck and these impossible lights that multiplied with every mile. The next light appeared directly in front of him, in the middle of the road. Jude hit the brakes. His truck slid on the ice. The trailer fishtailed. For a terrifying moment he thought he was going to jackknife, going to flip, going to die out here in the white. But the truck straightened out. Came to a stop maybe 20 feet from the light. Up close, it was even more wrong. The glow had depth. Looking at it was like looking into a tunnel of light. The surface rippled slightly, like heat haze, but there was no heat. The snow falling through the area around the light didn't melt, didn't change. Just passed through the space where the light existed and kept falling. Jude sat there with his engine idling, his headlights illuminating the light but not affecting it, and tried to decide what to do. Drive around it? Could he? The road was narrow here, snow piled high on both sides. Trying to go around might put him in a ditch. Drive through it? What would happen if his truck touched that light? Would it pass through harmlessly? Would it burn? Would it... A shape moved inside the light. Jude's breath caught. He leaned forward, squinting, trying to see better through the snow and distance. There was definitely something in there. Something dark. A silhouette against the orange-yellow glow, humanoid, tall, thin, moving with a fluid grace that didn't look quite human. The figure stepped out of the light, just walked out, like stepping through a doorway, emerged into the blizzard and stood there on the road between Jude's truck and the light. It was wearing what looked like a dark suit. No winter coat, no gloves, no hat. Just a plain, dark suit that shouldn't have existed in minus 32-degree weather. The wind that was strong enough to rock Jude's truck didn't seem to affect this figure at all. It stood perfectly still, perfectly upright, like the blizzard wasn't even there. Jude couldn't see its face. The snow and darkness and distance made details impossible. But he could see the general shape. Human, mostly, except the proportions were wrong. The arms too long, the head too large, the way it stood too rigid. The figure raised one arm, pointed at Jude's truck. Jude's engine died, not sputtered, not coughed, just stopped. All at once. Complete silence except for the wind screaming outside. The dashboard lights went out, the heater shut off. The CB radio died mid-static. Everything. All electrical systems. Dead. But the headlights stayed on. They shouldn't have. Headlights run off the battery. If everything else was dead, they should be too. But they glowed steady and bright, illuminating the figure on the road. The figure began walking toward the truck. Jude tried to restart the engine, turned the key. Nothing. No click. No sound. Just silence. He looked around frantically for something to use as a weapon. Found his tire iron under the seat. Gripped it tight. His hands were shaking. The figure kept walking, slow, deliberate. Each step perfectly placed despite the ice and snow. It covered the distance between them in seconds that felt like hours. It reached the driver's side door. Jude pressed himself back against the seat, raised the tire iron, ready to swing if that door opened. The figure stood there, still, silent, so close Jude could see more details now. The suit wasn't fabric, it looked more like rubber, or plastic, or something else. Seamless, no buttons, no zippers. Just a continuous surface that reflected Jude's headlights in strange ways. The face, if you could call it a face, was smooth. No features Jude could distinguish. Just a dark oval that might have been a head. Or might have been something else entirely. The figure reached up with one hand. Too many fingers, Jude noticed. Definitely too many fingers. And touched the window. The glass fogged instantly. Frost spread from the point of contact in geometric patterns. Crystalline. Beautiful, terrifying. Then the figure wrote something in the frost. Numbers. Symbols. Jude couldn't read them, couldn't understand them. They looked almost like coordinates, but wrong, like someone trying to write numbers who didn't quite understand how numbers worked. The figure stepped back, tilted its head, watching, waiting. Jude stared at the message in the frost. His mind raced. What was he supposed to do? Respond? Get out? Run? Before he could decide, the figure turned and walked back toward the light in the middle of the road. Same slow, deliberate pace. Same perfect balance despite the wind. It reached the light, stepped through, disappeared. The light vanished, just gone, instant, like someone flipping a switch. And in the sudden darkness, Jude's truck roared back to life. Engine, headlights, dashboard, heater, radio. Everything came back at once. The sudden noise made him jump, made him gasp, made his heart hammer so hard he thought he might have a heart attack right there. He sat frozen for a long moment. Too scared to move, too confused to think. Then his training kicked in. He put the truck in gear. Started driving. Had to keep moving, had to get to Station 4, had to... The lights were gone. All of them. The ones he'd passed, the ones ahead. The entire corridor of orange-yellow glows had vanished. There was just the road, the snow, the darkness, and his headlights cutting through it all. Jude drove the remaining miles to Station 4 without stopping, without looking back, without touching his radio. When he arrived, the crew asked him what took so long. The trip should have been 90 minutes. His truck's log showed it had been 4 hours and 17 minutes. Jude couldn't account for the missing time, couldn't explain where he'd been. The numbers didn't make sense. The distance was wrong. Everything was wrong. But when he climbed out of his truck in the relative warmth of the loading bay, he saw something that made his blood go cold. The message was still there. The numbers and symbols the figure had written on his window. They hadn't faded when the frost melted. They were etched into the glass. Permanent. Carved there by something that shouldn't have been possible. Jude stared at them, pulled out his phone, took a picture before anyone else could see. Then he got back in his truck and scraped them away with his ice scraper. Scraped until there was nothing left but scratched glass. He told himself it was hallucination, exhaustion, the blizzard playing tricks. Nothing real, nothing to worry about. But deep down, Jude Raskin knew he'd seen something out there in the storm. Something that had marked his truck, marked him, and he had no idea what it meant. 3 weeks later, Gideon Marek saw the lights. Gideon was a pipeline inspector. His job was to fly helicopter surveys of the line, checking for structural issues, looking for signs of damage or stress, making sure everything was running smoothly. It was good work, challenging work. He got to see parts of Alaska most people never saw. But tonight he wasn't flying. He was driving. His helicopter was grounded for maintenance. Routine stuff, nothing serious. But Gideon had reports due and needed to inspect a section of pipeline near Pump Station 3. So he'd borrowed a company truck with a thermal imaging camera mounted on the roof and headed out. It was March 12, 2019. Clear night. Cold, temperature hovering around minus 28 degrees. No wind. Perfect conditions for driving. Gideon had left Station 3 around 11 p.m. The plan was simple. Drive north about 30 miles. Stop at designated checkpoints. Scan the pipeline with thermal, make notes of any anomalies. Head back. 3 hours, tops. He was about halfway through the route when he saw the first light. Small, steady, orange-yellow. Right at the edge of his high beams, maybe 100 yards ahead. Gideon slowed down, flipped on his spotlight. The beam cut through the darkness and illuminated nothing. Just snow. Empty tundra. No source for the light. But the light was still there. Visible in his peripheral vision when he looked away from the spotlight. Gone when he looked directly at it with the bright beam. Back when he turned the spotlight off. "That's weird," Gideon muttered. He pulled over. Put the truck in park. Grabbed his thermal camera from the passenger seat. It was a handheld unit, military surplus, capable of detecting heat signatures from half a mile away. He pointed it at the light. The screen showed nothing. No heat signature, no thermal variance, just the ambient cold of the landscape. Minus 28 degrees everywhere. Gideon frowned. That wasn't possible. If there was a light source, any light source, it would generate heat. Even LED lights generate some heat. This showed nothing. He got out of the truck. The cold hit him like a physical blow. Even through his heavy coat, even with his hood up and his face mask in place, the temperature was brutal. The light was still there. Clearer now without the windshield. He could see it hovering, definitely hovering, about 3 feet off the snow. No support, no structure, just existing. Gideon walked toward it. Slowly, carefully, testing the snow with each step to make sure he wasn't walking into a drift or a hidden crevasse. He got within 20 feet before stopping. His instincts were screaming at him to stay back. Something wasn't right about this light, something fundamental. He raised the thermal camera again, pointed it directly at the glow. Still nothing. No heat. But when he lowered the camera and looked at the snow beneath the light, he saw something that made his stomach drop. The snow was melting. Not all of it. Just a perfect circle directly beneath the light. The snow in that circle had melted down to bare ground. Steam rose from the exposed earth. Heat waves rippled the air. But the thermal camera showed no heat source. That was impossible. Scientifically impossible. You can't melt snow without heat. You can't create heat without showing up on thermal imaging. It violated basic physics. Gideon stood there trying to reconcile what he was seeing with what he knew to be true. His brain rejected the contradiction. There had to be an explanation. Had to be. Then the light moved. Not fast, not threatening. Just drifted. Slowly, to the left, about 10 feet, then stopped, hovering again, steady again. Where it had been, the circle of melted snow remained, steam still rising. Where it was now, new snow began to melt, creating a second circle. Gideon's hand went to his radio. He should report this, call it in, get someone else to verify what he was seeing. But what would he say? That he'd found a heat source with no heat? A light that defied physics? They'd think he was crazy. They'd think the cold had gotten to him. The light moved again, another 10 feet, created a third circle of melted snow, then a fourth, then a fifth. It was creating a pattern, a line of melted circles stretching across the tundra, perfectly spaced, perfectly circular, each one steaming in the Arctic air. Gideon pulled out his phone, started taking pictures, video, documentation, evidence that this was real. Through his phone screen, the light looked different. Dimmer, fuzzy, like the camera couldn't quite capture it properly. The video showed the circles of melted snow clearly, but the light itself appeared as just a vague glow, indistinct, almost invisible. He lowered his phone. The light was bright and clear to his naked eye. Raised his phone, dim and fuzzy. "What the hell are you?" Gideon whispered. The light stopped moving, hung there in the air. Silent, still. Then 5 more lights appeared, all at once, instantaneous. They simply existed where they hadn't existed a moment before. Same orange-yellow color. Same size, same impossible steadiness. They formed a pentagon, 5 lights with the original in the center. Perfectly geometric, perfectly arranged. Gideon's breath quickened, his heart pounded. This wasn't natural. This wasn't anything he'd ever seen or heard of. This was a sound cut through the night. Not loud, not threatening, just present. A low-frequency hum that Gideon felt more than heard. It vibrated through the ground, through his boots, up his legs into his chest. The lights began to pulse, slow at first, a gentle brightening and dimming, in perfect synchronization. All 6 lights breathing together like a single organism. Then they started to rotate. The outer 5 moved in a circle around the center light. Slow, smooth, maintaining their perfect spacing, creating a wheel of light in the darkness, and as they rotated, the hum grew stronger. Gideon could feel it in his teeth now, in his skull, a pressure that made his vision blur and his balance waver. He took a step back, then another, his survival instincts overriding his scientific curiosity. The lights rotated faster. The hum became a throb, deep, powerful, resonating at a frequency that made Gideon's organs feel like they were vibrating independently from each other. He ran, turned, and sprinted back to his truck. His boots slipped on the ice. He went down hard, got up, kept running, reached the truck and yanked the door open. The lights were still rotating behind him. Faster now, fast enough that they started to blur together, creating a solid ring of orange-yellow light spinning around the center point. Gideon jumped in the truck, started the engine, put it in gear. The headlights died. The dashboard lights died. The engine kept running, but everything else went dark. Complete darkness except for the spinning lights behind him. He hit the gas anyway, drove blind, used the vague sense of where the road should be, prayed he wouldn't hit anything. After what felt like hours but was probably 30 seconds, his lights came back on. Dashboard, headlights, everything. Gideon looked in his rearview mirror. The lights were still there, still spinning, getting smaller with distance but still visible, still wrong. He drove for 5 miles before he felt safe enough to slow down. Pulled over, sat there shaking, breathing hard, trying to process what he'd just witnessed. His thermal camera lay on the passenger seat where he'd dropped it. He picked it up, checked the recorded data. The camera had been recording the entire time. He scrolled back through the thermal imaging log, found the timestamp when he'd been standing near the lights. The screen showed nothing unusual, just the normal cold landscape. No lights, no heat signatures, no evidence that anything had been there at all. But when he checked his phone's camera roll, the photos were there. Blurry and indistinct, but there. Proof that something had happened. Gideon sat in his truck for a long time, deciding what to do. Finally, he called his supervisor. "This is Marek. I need to report something unusual." "Go ahead." "I was doing the thermal survey north of Station 3. Encountered some kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Lights, multiple lights. They were hovering, moving, melting snow, but showing no heat signature on thermal." Silence on the other end. Then, "You feeling okay, Marek?" "I'm fine. I know how this sounds, but I have photos, video, I can show you." "Bring it in tomorrow. We'll take a look." This might need immediate attention. Whatever these things are, they're... "Tomorrow, Marek. Get some sleep. It's late. Cold does strange things to perception." The line went dead. Gideon sat there holding his phone, staring at it. They didn't believe him. Of course they didn't. Why would they? He checked his photos again. The lights were barely visible. Just vague glows. Not impressive. Not concerning. Nothing that would convince anyone. But Gideon knew what he'd seen. Knew it was real. Knew that whatever those lights were, they violated every law of physics he understood. He finished his inspection route, documented everything as normal, drove back to Station 3, went to his room, lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Around 4 a.m. he got up, went to the common room, made coffee, sat at one of the computers and started researching. Typed in search terms. Unexplained Lights Alaska Pipeline. Dozens of results. Hundreds. Reports going back decades. Truck drivers, security guards, maintenance crews, all describing similar experiences. Lights that shouldn't exist. Missing time. Equipment failures. Gideon read for hours. As dawn broke outside, he was still reading, still searching, still trying to find answers. One report caught his attention. From February 2019. A fuel hauler named Jude Raskin who'd encountered orange-yellow lights during a blizzard. Lights that stayed the same size regardless of distance. A figure that had emerged from one of the lights and marked his truck window. Gideon wrote down Raskin's name, his employee ID number, his station assignment. He needed to talk to this guy, needed to compare experiences, needed to know he wasn't alone in what he'd seen. But when he called the personnel office later that morning, they told him Jude Raskin no longer worked for the company, had quit 3 days after his blizzard encounter, left no forwarding address, no contact information, just turned in his resignation and disappeared. Gideon tried tracking him down through social media, through friends, through family. Nothing. Jude Raskin had vanished as completely as the lights had. That scared Gideon more than the lights themselves, because it meant Jude had seen something that made him want to disappear. Something so disturbing that he'd thrown away a 6-year career and gone into hiding. What had he seen? What had happened during those missing hours that his truck's log couldn't account for? Gideon looked at his own timeline from the previous night, checked his truck's GPS log, his watch, his phone. The numbers didn't match. According to the GPS, his inspection run had taken 5 hours. According to his watch, it had taken 2.5 hours. According to his phone's timestamp on his photos, he'd been at the light location for 47 minutes. But he only remembered being there for maybe 5 minutes. 10 at most. 42 minutes were missing from his memory. Just gone. Erased. Gideon sat in the common room as morning turned to afternoon. Other workers came and went, made small talk, asked if he was okay. He said he was fine, just tired, just thinking. But he wasn't fine, because now he understood why Jude Raskin had disappeared. When you realize that time itself can be stolen from you, when you realize that there are things out there that can reach into your mind and erase pieces of your life, when you realize that the universe is far stranger and more terrifying than you ever imagined. Running seems like the only rational response. Gideon Marek didn't run, but he changed. Over the next few weeks, he became obsessed, collected every report he could find about unexplained phenomena along the pipeline, cross-referenced dates and locations, built timelines, created maps. A pattern emerged. The lights appeared in clusters. Geographic areas where multiple sightings occurred within days or weeks of each other. Then, silence for months. Then a new cluster somewhere else, like something was moving along the pipeline, slowly, methodically, studying it, studying the people who worked there. Gideon tracked 23 credible reports over the past year alone. 19 of those involved lights, 11 involved missing time. 4 involved figures emerging from the lights. 3 involved messages or symbols left behind. And in every case, every single case, the witness either quit their job shortly after or refused to discuss the incident beyond the initial report. Something was scaring these people into silence. Something more than just strange lights in the sky. On April 3, 2019, Gideon decided to find out what. He requested permission to do an overnight survey run, said he wanted to check a section of pipeline that had shown some minor anomalies in thermal imaging. His supervisor approved it, gave him a truck, told him to be careful. Gideon loaded the truck with equipment, thermal camera, regular cameras, voice recorder, radiation detector, EMF meter. Every monitoring device he could get his hands on. If something happened, he was going to document it properly. He drove to the section of pipeline where he'd seen the lights 3 weeks earlier. Arrived around 11 p.m., parked the truck, set up his equipment. Then he waited. The night was clear. Cold. Temperature around minus 25 degrees. No wind. Perfect visibility. The pipeline stretched away in both directions, a pale line against the dark tundra. Above, the stars were brilliant, sharp, uncountable. Gideon sat in his truck with the engine running and the heater on, watched the monitors, waited for something to happen. Midnight came and went. Nothing. 1 a.m. Nothing. 2 a.m. Still nothing. Gideon started to wonder if he was wasting his time. Maybe the lights were random. Maybe they only appeared once in each location and never returned. Maybe. The EMF meter spiked. Gideon grabbed it, looked at the reading. The electromagnetic field had jumped from normal background levels to off the scale. The needle was pegged. The alarm was beeping. He looked up through the windshield. 3 lights floated 100 yards ahead. Same orange-yellow color. Same steady glow, arranged in a triangle. "Here we go," Gideon whispered. He grabbed his camera, started recording, narrating what he was seeing, creating a verbal log for the record. April 3rd, 2019. Time is 2:14 a.m. Location approximately 28 miles north of Pump Station 3. 3 unidentified light sources visible ahead. Electromagnetic field readings extreme. Temperature holding steady at minus 25 degrees. No aircraft visible or audible. No other vehicles in area. The lights began to move. They spread out, formed a line parallel to the pipeline. Each light positioned exactly the same distance from the structure. Maybe 30 feet, perfectly aligned. Then they started moving along the pipeline, slow, steady, like they were following it, inspecting it. Gideon's hands shook as he filmed. This was exactly what he'd hoped to see. Proof, documentation, evidence that whatever these things were, they were interested in the pipeline itself. The lights moved past his truck. He pivoted with his camera, keeping them in frame. They continued south, maintaining their perfect spacing, their perfect alignment. Then they stopped, all 3 at once, just froze in place, hovering still. One of them detached from the line, moved toward the pipeline. Got close enough that Gideon could see it illuminating the metal surface. The light reflected off the curved structure, creating strange patterns. The light touched the pipeline. Gideon zoomed in his camera as much as possible. The light seemed to flatten against the metal, spread out, like liquid, like it was seeping into the structure itself. His radiation detector started clicking. Gideon looked at it. The reading was elevated but not dangerous, just above background, consistent with what you'd expect near certain industrial processes. But there was no industrial process happening out here. Just empty tundra and a pressurized pipe full of oil. The light pulled away from the pipeline, resumed its spherical shape, returned to the line formation with the other 2 lights. They hung there for a moment. Then all 3 rose into the air, straight up, fast, gone into the darkness above in seconds. Gideon kept filming the empty sky for another minute before lowering his camera. His heart was pounding. His breath came in quick gasps that fogged the inside of his windshield. He'd done it. He'd documented them, recorded them. This was real. This was proof. He checked his footage. The lights were clearly visible, distinct, moving deliberately. Everything he'd said was recorded. Everything had timestamps. This was legitimate evidence. Gideon started his truck, started driving back to Station 3. He needed to show this to someone, needed to make them understand that this wasn't hallucination or equipment malfunction or atmospheric phenomena. This was real. That's when he noticed the pipeline. In the spot where the light had touched it, the metal was glowing, faintly. A soft, orange-yellow luminescence that matched the color of the lights. Just a small area, maybe 3 feet across, pulsing gently. Gideon stopped the truck, got out with his thermal camera. The glowing section showed up on thermal, definitely warmer than the surrounding metal. About 15 degrees warmer. Not hot enough to be dangerous, but definitely anomalous. He touched it with his gloved hand. Felt warmth through the fabric. Real heat. Measurable. Verifiable. He took samples, scraped a tiny amount of metal from the affected area, collected it in a sample bag. Evidence. Physical evidence. Then he saw the other marks. Up and down the pipeline in both directions as far as his headlights could reach were more glowing spots. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all the same size, all pulsing in synchronization, like a code, like a message written in light along the length of the pipe. Gideon stood there in the minus 25-degree cold, staring at the marked pipeline, and understood something fundamental. This wasn't random. This wasn't observation. This was deliberate communication. Someone, something, was trying to tell them something, trying to leave a message, using the pipeline itself as a medium. But what was the message? What did it mean? Gideon pulled out his phone, took photos of the pattern, the spacing, the arrangement. Maybe someone smarter than him could decode it. Maybe. His phone died. Full battery 1 second, dead the next, just shut off completely. Gideon tried to restart it. Nothing. Tried his truck. The engine was still running, but when he tried the headlights, they flickered and failed. The dashboard lights dimmed. The glowing spots on the pipeline grew brighter. The pulsing accelerated. Faster, faster, creating a rhythm that Gideon could feel in his bones. The same low-frequency hum he'd felt before. The same pressure in his skull. He got in his truck, put it in gear, drove away from the pipeline as fast as the icy road would allow. The glowing spots followed him, not physically, but in his mirrors, in his peripheral vision. He could see them stretching away behind him, could see new ones appearing ahead of him. The entire pipeline was lighting up, mile after mile of glowing marks appearing in sequence. Gideon drove for 20 miles before the glowing stopped. The marks faded. The pressure in his head released. His truck's electrical systems came back online. His phone restarted. He pulled over, sat there shaking, too scared to go back, too curious to move forward. His camera was still recording. He stopped it, checked the footage. The last 30 minutes showed nothing, just static, just interference, just a corrupted file that wouldn't play, all of it. Everything he'd filmed of the lights touching the pipeline, everything he'd documented of the glowing marks, everything, gone. Gideon wanted to cry, wanted to scream, wanted to throw the camera out the window, but he didn't, because his hand was in his pocket, and in his pocket was the sample bag. The metal scraping from the glowing spot on the pipeline. That was still there. That was still real. He had physical evidence. When he got back to Station 3, he went straight to his room, hid the sample bag in his personal gear. Didn't tell anyone what he'd seen. Didn't mention the lights or the marks or the corrupted footage. The next day, he sent the metal sample to a private lab in Anchorage. Used his own money. Requested a full analysis. Didn't mention where it came from or why he wanted it tested. The results came back a week later. The metal showed unusual properties. Microscopic changes to the crystalline structure. Trace elements that shouldn't be present. Isotope ratios that didn't match standard steel composition. The lab tech called him personally. Asked where he'd gotten the sample. Said it looked like the metal had been exposed to extreme electromagnetic fields, or extreme heat, or something else they couldn't identify. Asked if it was related to classified work. Said if it was, they needed to report it to proper authorities. Gideon told them to destroy the sample, destroy the records, forget they'd ever analyzed it. Then he quit his job, packed his things, left Alaska, moved to Seattle, got a job doing building inspections. Normal work. Safe work, indoor work. No more pipeline, no more lights, no more missing time. But sometimes, late at night, he pulls up the corrupted video file on his computer, runs it through recovery software, tries to extract even a single frame of usable footage. Nothing ever works. Whatever those lights were, they didn't want to be recorded. Didn't want to be documented, didn't want evidence of their existence to remain. But Gideon remembers every detail, remembers the way the lights moved, the way they marked the pipeline, the way reality itself seemed to bend around them. And he knows with absolute certainty that they're still out there, still following the pipeline, still leaving their marks, still stealing time from people who get too close, still trying to communicate something that humans aren't ready to understand. 6 months after Gideon Marek left Alaska, a maintenance crew working near Pump Station 3 reported finding strange markings on the pipeline. Circular patches where the metal seemed to have been altered. Not damaged, not corroded, just changed. Molecular analysis showed the same unusual properties Gideon had found, the same isotope ratios, the same crystalline structure changes. The report was classified, buried in company archives, listed as equipment malfunction. Nothing to worry about. Normal wear and tear. But the crew members who found those marks knew better. They knew they were looking at something that shouldn't exist. Something that violated the normal rules of chemistry and physics. Something that proved there were forces at work in the Arctic that science couldn't explain. Most of them kept quiet, kept their jobs, tried to forget. But a few asked questions, started looking for patterns, started connecting dots. They found Jude Raskin's report from February, found Gideon Marek's records from March and April, found dozens of other accounts from years past. They realized they weren't the first to see these things, weren't the first to encounter the lights, weren't the first to have time stolen from them and memories erased. They were just the latest in a long line of witnesses to something vast, something ancient, something that had been visiting the Alaska pipeline since before it was even built, and probably would continue visiting long after it was gone. The pipeline runs 800 miles through some of the most remote and unforgiving territory on Earth. Every day, thousands of people work along its length, driving, flying, inspecting, maintaining. Most of them never see anything unusual, but some do. Some see the lights, and their lives are never the same. Sarah Kelly worked in the archives at Alyeska Pipeline Service Company headquarters in Anchorage. Her job was boring, digitizing old maintenance reports, organizing files, making sure decades of paperwork didn't get lost to time. She'd been doing it for 3 years. Never found anything interesting, until she found the box. It was unmarked, no label, no date, just shoved in the back of a storage room behind newer files. The kind of box that gets forgotten, that everyone assumes someone else dealt with. Sarah almost didn't open it, almost just added it to her digitizing queue and moved on. But something made her curious, made her pull the lid off and look inside. Reports, dozens of them, handwritten, typed on old typewriters, some going back to the 1970s, to the early days of the pipeline's construction, all of them describing lights. Sarah sat down on the dusty floor of the archive room and started reading. January 1976. Construction foreman named Dale Murphy reported seeing orange lights hovering over a section of pipe being welded near Prudhoe Bay. Lights appeared 3 nights in a row, same time, same location. Murphy's crew refused to work after dark. Project delayed 2 weeks. Report filed and marked atmospheric phenomenon. March 1978. Security guard named Linda Vasquez reported multiple lights creating patterns above Pump Station 7. Lights spelled out symbols she didn't recognize. She took photographs. Photos came out blank. Report filed and marked equipment malfunction. August 1981. Helicopter pilot named Frank Torres reported his instruments failing while flying near Adigun Pass. Saw dozens of lights below him on the pipeline, each light marking a specific spot. When he landed to check, found no evidence of any light source. Report filed and marked instrument failure. The reports went on and on. 30 years of them, 40 years, right up to 2018, all describing similar experiences, all dismissed, all buried. Sarah counted them. 63 credible reports, all with witness names, all with specific dates and locations, all ignored. She pulled out her laptop, started entering the data into a spreadsheet. Location, date, time, description, witness name. A pattern emerged, the sightings clustered, not randomly, in geographic waves moving along the pipeline, north to south, then south to north, then north to south again, like something traveling the length of the pipeline repeatedly. A circuit, a patrol, and the frequency was increasing. In the 1970s, reports came in every few years. In the 1980s, every year or two. In the 90s, multiple times per year. In the 2000s, monthly. By 2018, weekly. Whatever these lights were, they were coming more often. Staying longer. Getting bolder. Sarah cross-referenced the sighting locations with maintenance records. Something else jumped out at her. Every spot where lights had been reported eventually developed problems. Not immediately, sometimes months or years later. But problems always appeared. Stress fractures, unusual corrosion, metal fatigue, things that required repair or replacement. The lights weren't just observing the pipeline. They were marking weak points, identifying problems before they became visible to human inspection. But why? Sarah spent the next week diving deeper. She tracked down some of the witnesses. Most had retired. Some had died. A few were still working in the oil industry, just not in Alaska anymore. Those who were willing to talk all said the same thing. They'd seen something they couldn't explain, something that changed how they viewed reality, something that made them question whether humans were alone in monitoring this pipeline. One former truck driver, now living in Oregon, told Sarah, "I drove that road for 20 years, saw the lights maybe a dozen times. Each time they were in the same spots, always marking the same sections of pipe. At first I thought they were checking for damage. But after a while I realized they weren't checking. They were preventing. Every spot those lights touched stayed functional, stayed strong, like they were reinforcing it somehow." Sarah asked if he'd ever reported this theory. He laughed, a bitter sound. "Report what? That alien beings are maintaining our infrastructure? They'd have locked me up. So I kept my mouth shut, drove my routes, and tried not to think too hard about what it meant." Another witness, a retired engineer named Margaret Cross, had a different perspective. "The pipeline runs through territory that shouldn't be touched," she told Sarah over the phone. "We built it anyway. Carved a scar across pristine wilderness. Maybe the lights are, I don't know, caretakers? Making sure we don't cause more damage than we already have? Every time they appear, they're near sections that could potentially leak, could potentially cause environmental disaster. Maybe they're not studying us. Maybe they're protecting the land from us." Sarah considered that. It made a strange kind of sense. The pipeline transported 500,000 barrels of oil per day through some of the most fragile ecosystems on Earth. A major leak could devastate thousands of square miles, could poison water sources, could destroy habitats. What if something out there understood that? What if something cared enough to intervene? But that raised more questions than it answered. What were these beings? Where did they come from? How long had they been watching? Sarah found one report that chilled her. From 1972, before the pipeline was even built. A geological surveyor named Richard Bowman had been mapping the proposed pipeline route, camping alone in the wilderness, making notes, taking samples. One night, he saw lights, multiple lights, creating a line across the landscape that exactly matched the route engineers had proposed for the pipeline. Exactly, every curve, every deviation, every spot where the pipe would eventually run. Like someone had already known. Like someone had the blueprints. Bowman's report was brief, clinical, but Sarah could read the fear between the lines. He'd realized he was watching something impossible. Something that suggested the pipeline route wasn't entirely humanity's idea. Sarah sat in her apartment that night, spreadsheet open on her laptop, and tried to make sense of it all. 63 witnesses over 43 years, all describing similar phenomena, all dismissed, all ignored. But what if they were right? What if there was something out there that had been watching this pipeline since before it existed? What if humans had built this structure exactly where someone else wanted it built? What if the pipeline wasn't really ours at all? Sarah thought about Jude Raskin, Gideon Marek, all the others who'd seen the lights and been changed by them, who'd lost time, lost memories, lost certainty about the nature of reality. She thought about the symbols they'd reported seeing, the numbers written in frost, the patterns of glowing marks on the pipeline itself. What if it was all communication? What if these beings had been trying to tell humanity something for 43 years and no one was listening? Sarah made a decision. She copied all the reports, organized them chronologically, included her analysis, her maps, her timeline showing the increasing frequency of sightings. Then she sent it to every journalist she could find, every UFO researcher, every scientist who might take it seriously. Most ignored her, called her crazy, called her work speculation. But a few responded. A few asked questions. A few started their own investigations. And slowly, quietly, people started paying attention. In Seattle, Gideon Marek received an email from someone he didn't know. A woman named Sarah Kelly. Subject line, "Pipeline lights. You're not alone." He almost deleted it. Almost ignored it like he'd been ignoring everything related to Alaska for the past 6 months. But he opened it. Inside was a PDF. 63 reports. 43 years. All describing what he'd seen. All confirming he wasn't crazy. Wasn't hallucinating. Wasn't alone. Gideon sat in his apartment reading through the reports with tears in his eyes. Relief. Validation. Proof that his experience had been real. At the end of the PDF was a list of names. Witnesses who'd agreed to talk, to share their stories, to stop hiding. Gideon added his name to the list. Within a week, 20 more names appeared, then 50, then 100. People came out of silence. Truck drivers, engineers, pilots, security guards, construction workers, all of them with similar stories. All of them tired of hiding. They started comparing notes, sharing details, building a comprehensive picture of what had been happening along the pipeline for decades. Patterns emerged that no single witness could have seen. Patterns that only became visible when all the data was combined. The lights appeared in cycles, roughly every 7 weeks, always at night, always in remote sections, always near points of structural stress. They avoided populated areas, avoided times when multiple witnesses might be present, like they understood human behavior, like they were trying to remain hidden while still accomplishing whatever their purpose was, and most importantly, they'd never hurt anyone. Not once in 43 years had the lights caused injury, caused death, caused harm. They'd scared people, confused people, stolen time and memories, but never caused harm. That suggested intelligence, restraint, purpose. Whatever these beings were, they weren't hostile, weren't threatening. They were just there, doing something humans didn't understand with technology humans couldn't explain. Sarah Kelly compiled all the new testimonies, added them to her archive, created a website, posted everything publicly. The company threatened legal action, said she was violating confidentiality agreements, said she was spreading misinformation, said she needed to take it down immediately. Sarah refused. Other people started mirroring the site, hosting copies, spreading the information faster than it could be suppressed. Within a month, thousands of people knew the truth. Within 3 months, tens of thousands. News organizations started calling. Documentaries were proposed. The story was getting too big to bury. The company finally released an official statement. Alyeska Pipeline Service Company takes all unusual incident reports seriously. We have investigated the historical reports referenced in recent media coverage. While we cannot explain every anomalous observation along our pipeline route, we have found no evidence of any threat to operational safety or environmental security. Our infrastructure remains secure and fully functional. A non-denial denial. An acknowledgement without explanation. The best they could do. Because what else could they say? That strange lights had been appearing along their pipeline for 43 years? That dozens of their employees had lost time and memories? That physical evidence suggested something beyond human technology was interacting with their infrastructure? No corporation would admit that. No government agency would confirm it. So they did what institutions always do: acknowledge the reports while providing no real answers. Maintained plausible deniability. Kept their secrets. But the witnesses kept talking. The reports kept coming. The truth kept spreading. And along the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, the lights continued to appear. Night after night. Week after week. Month after month. Still marking the metal. Still creating their patterns. Still doing whatever it was they'd been doing since before humans even built the structure they seemed so interested in. Some people called them aliens. Some called them interdimensional beings. Some called them automated probes from an advanced civilization. Some simply called them unexplained. But they were there. Real. Documented. Witnessed by hundreds of people whose lives had been changed by a few moments of impossible light in the Arctic darkness. And maybe that was enough. Maybe humanity didn't need to understand everything. Maybe some mysteries were meant to remain mysteries. Maybe the important thing was acknowledging that the universe held more than we could explain. Jude Raskin read about Sarah Kelly's investigation online. Read the testimonies. Saw his own experience reflected in dozens of others. For the first time since that night in the blizzard, he felt like he could breathe. He wasn't crazy, wasn't alone. What he'd seen had been real. He contacted Sarah, added his detailed account to the archive, described the figure that had emerged from the light, the symbols on his window, the missing hours. Other witnesses reached out with similar experiences. 5 of them had seen figures. 3 had received symbols. All had lost time. Together, they started trying to decode the symbols, comparing the numbers and shapes they'd been shown, looking for meaning. They never found a complete translation. But they found something. The numbers formed coordinates. Locations along the pipeline where major problems would eventually develop. Not immediately, not for years sometimes, but eventually. The symbols were warnings. The beings, whatever they were, had been trying to tell the maintenance crews where to focus their attention, where to reinforce, where to repair before catastrophic failure occurred. They'd been trying to help. For 43 years they'd been leaving messages that no one understood, marking problems that no one investigated, warning about dangers that no one acknowledged. Until now. Sarah Kelly forwarded the decoded coordinates to current pipeline maintenance managers. Suggested they inspect those locations. Check for developing issues. Most ignored her. Called her crazy. Dismissed the whole thing as internet conspiracy theory. But a few checked and found exactly what the symbols had indicated. Stress fractures, corrosion, metal fatigue. Problems that would have become catastrophic within months if left unchecked. Those few managers quietly ordered repairs, reinforced the weak points, prevented potential disasters, and never publicly acknowledged why. Because how could they? How could they explain that maintenance decisions were being made based on messages left by unidentified entities? How could they justify that to shareholders, to regulators, to the public? So they stayed silent, fixed the problems, kept the pipeline running, and late at night when they drove those remote sections, some of them looked up at the sky, looking for lights, looking for confirmation, looking for reassurance that whatever was out there was still watching, still caring, still trying to prevent catastrophe. The lights always appeared, still marking, still warning, still fulfilling whatever purpose drove them through the long Arctic nights. And now, finally, someone was listening. There's a specific kind of silence that exists in the Arctic at 3 in the morning. Not just quiet, silence. The kind that presses against your eardrums, the kind that makes you hear your own heartbeat, the kind that feels alive. Owen Keller had been driving through that silence for 4 hours straight. He was a parts hauler, specialized in emergency deliveries. When a pump station needed a critical component in the middle of the night, Owen was the guy they called. He'd drive anywhere, anytime, any weather. The pay was excellent. The solitude was better. Tonight's run was simple. Deliver a replacement valve assembly to Pump Station 2. The old valve had developed a crack during the day shift. Nothing catastrophic, but it needed replacement before it became a problem. Owen had picked up the part at the warehouse in Fairbanks at 10 p.m. and headed north on the Dalton Highway. The weather was clear, temperature sitting at minus 29 degrees. No wind, no precipitation, just cold and dark and empty roads stretching north through the wilderness. Perfect conditions. Owen's truck was a heavy-duty Ford F-350, modified for Arctic service. Extra battery, block heater, upgraded alternator, tires rated for extreme cold, and most importantly, the best headlights money could buy. 4,000 lumen LED arrays that turned night into day for 200 yards ahead. He needed those lights. The haul road wasn't like normal highways. No streetlights, no reflectors, just a strip of gravel and ice cutting through absolute darkness. Your headlights were your only connection to the world. Owen had been driving for so long that he'd stopped thinking about it. His hands moved on the wheel automatically. His foot held steady on the gas. His eyes scanned the road ahead with practiced efficiency. Muscle memory. Routine. Until he saw the shadow. At first, he thought it was an animal, caribou or moose on the road. But the shape was wrong. Too regular. Too geometric. It was a rectangle. A perfect rectangle of darkness lying across the road maybe 100 yards ahead. About 8 feet wide and 4 feet tall, like someone had painted a black box on the pavement. Owen slowed down, flipped his high beams on. The shadow didn't change. Didn't resolve into something recognizable. Just remained a perfect rectangle of black against the white-gray of the snowy road. That wasn't right. Shadows don't work that way. Shadows are projections. They have edges that blur. They change perspective as you move. They're dependent on light source and angle. This shadow just existed. Flat, absolute, independent of perspective. Owen brought his truck to a stop about 50 feet from the shadow, left the engine running, kept his headlights aimed at it. The shadow was directly in his light beams, the full 4,000 lumens of LED brightness hitting it straight on. But the shadow didn't lighten, didn't fade. It was like his headlights stopped at the edge of the rectangular darkness and couldn't penetrate. Owen grabbed his flashlight from the center console, a powerful tactical light that could illuminate objects a quarter-mile away. He rolled down his window. The cold hit him like a slap, and aimed the flashlight at the shadow. The beam hit the shadow and stopped. Just stopped, like hitting a wall of black. "What the hell?" Owen muttered. He keyed his CB radio. "This is Part 7 northbound to Station 2. Anyone on this channel?" Static, then a voice, female, tired. "Part 7, this is dispatch. Go ahead." "Yeah, I've got something weird on the road here. Some kind of, I don't know, dark spot. Can't see through it. Can't see what's causing it." "What's your location?" "About 70 miles north of Fairbanks. Mile marker 103, I think." "Any vehicles in the area?" "Negative, just me out here." "Could be an oil spill. Someone might have dropped hydraulic fluid. Be careful approaching it." "It's not a spill, it's..." Owen struggled to describe what he was seeing. "It's too perfect, too geometric. It's like a rectangle of pure black just sitting on the road." Silence on the other end. Then, "Part 7, when's the last time you took a break?" Owen felt a flash of irritation. "I'm not hallucinating. I'm looking right at it. Not suggesting you are. Just asking. These long night drives can play tricks on your eyes. You might be seeing shadows from your own headlights." "My headlights are pointing at this thing. If anything, they should eliminate shadows, not create them." "Okay. Okay, here's what I want you to do. Turn your headlights off and on. See if it changes." "Good idea." Owen reached for the headlight switch, turned it off. The shadow remained. In complete darkness, no headlights, just the faint glow of his dashboard. The rectangular patch of black was still visible. Darker than the surrounding darkness, a void in the night. That was impossible. You can't have a shadow without light. Shadows are the absence of light. But if there's no light to begin with, there's no shadow. Just darkness. Owen turned his headlights back on. The shadow was still there. Still a perfect rectangle. Still completely black. But now it was moving. Not across the road. Not toward or away from him. It was rotating. The rectangle was spinning slowly around its center point. Like a clock hand. Like a propeller blade. Smooth. Constant. About one revolution every 10 seconds. Owen's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His heart started beating faster. His mouth went dry. This was wrong. This was fundamentally, absolutely wrong. He keyed the radio again. "Dispatch, it's moving now. The shadow, it's rotating." "Say again?" "The shadow is rotating, spinning, like someone's turning it." "Part 7, I'm showing no other vehicles in your area. No aircraft, no personnel. Can you go around it?" Owen looked at the road, narrow here. Snow piled high on both sides. He could maybe squeeze past on the shoulder, but that was risky. If his wheels left the road, he could get stuck. Could flip. Could be stranded. "Negative. Road's too narrow." "Then I recommend you wait it out. If it's some kind of atmospheric phenomenon, it should dissipate. And if it doesn't, then we'll send someone to check it out. But that'll be at least 2 hours. You're pretty isolated up there." Owen stared at the rotating shadow. It had completed maybe 15 rotations since he'd started watching. Constant speed. Constant motion. Not slowing down. Not stopping. "I'll wait," Owen said. but I'm documenting this, taking photos. Copy that, keep me updated. Owen pulled out his phone, aimed it at the shadow, took a photo. The screen showed empty road, no shadow, just his headlights illuminating gray pavement and white snow. He looked up. The shadow was still there, still rotating, clear as day. He tried again. Same result. The camera couldn't see it. Owen put his phone away, grabbed his backup camera from behind the seat, a professional-grade DSLR he used for documentation. Adjusted the settings, aimed, clicked, checked the preview screen. Empty road. "You've got to be kidding me," Owen whispered. Whatever this shadow was, it didn't photograph, didn't register on digital sensors, only visible to the human eye. That narrowed down the possibilities significantly, and none of them were good. Owen sat in his truck watching the shadow rotate, trying to make sense of it, trying to find a rational explanation. Light projection? No, there was no light source except his own headlights, and they were pointing at it, not creating it. Optical illusion? No. Optical illusions don't maintain perfect geometry, don't rotate with mechanical precision. Hallucination? No, hallucinations don't stay consistent, don't maintain properties across observation. So what was it? The shadow completed another rotation. And another. And another. Owen realized something. The rotation was speeding up. Not much. Not obviously. But each revolution was taking slightly less time than the one before. 9 seconds now. Then 8.5. Then 8. And it was getting bigger. The rectangle was growing, slowly expanding outward from its center, still maintaining its perfect shape. Still maintaining its absolute blackness. Now it was 10 feet wide, 12 feet, 15 feet. Owen put his truck in reverse, started backing up, keeping his eyes on the growing shadow, keeping his distance. The shadow kept expanding, kept accelerating. The rotation was fast now, maybe 1 revolution per 3 seconds. The rectangular darkness had become a spinning void in the middle of the road. 20 feet wide, 25, 30. It was going to reach his truck, going to swallow his headlights, going to... A vehicle appeared behind him. Owen saw the headlights in his rearview mirror. Another truck, coming up fast. He grabbed his CB. "Dispatch, there's another vehicle approaching my location. Who is it?" "Stand by." Pause. "That's Maintenance 9. Driver is Silas Brandt. He's on his way to Station 2 as well. I'll patch him through." The radio crackled. Then a new voice, male, young. "Part 7, this is Maintenance 9. You're blocking the road, buddy. What's the holdup?" "There's something on the road ahead, something dangerous. You need to stop." "I don't see anything." "It's there, trust me. A black shadow, rotating, growing. You can't miss it." Owen watched in his mirror as the other truck slowed, stopped about 50 yards behind him. The radio. Part 7, I'm not seeing what you're seeing. Road looks clear to me. You're not close enough. Get out. Come up here, you'll see it. In this cold, not a chance. My thermal scope should pick up anything unusual, though. Hold on." Owen waited. The shadow was still growing, still spinning. Now 40 feet across. So big, it filled the entire width of the road and spilled out onto the shoulders, the radio. "Okay, I'm scanning the area with thermal. I'm seeing... Actually, that's weird. There's a cold spot on the road, really cold, below ambient, like -60 or something, right where you're saying this shadow is. Can you see it visually?" "Negative, just looks like road to me. But the thermal signature is definitely anomalous. I need you to come up here. Stand next to my truck, look at what I'm looking at." Silence, then, "Fine. But this better be good. I'm freezing my ass off as it is." Owen watched in his mirror as the other driver's door opened. A figure climbed out. bundled in heavy winter gear, started walking toward Owen's truck. The shadow was 50 feet across now. The rotation was so fast it was becoming a blur. The distinct rectangle was turning into a circle of black, a spinning disk of void. The figure, Silas, reached Owen's truck, tapped on the passenger window. Owen leaned over, unlocked the door. "Get in." Silas climbed in, pulled off his face mask. Young guy, maybe 25. Beard covered in frost. "Okay, I'm here. Show me what you're—" "Holy shit." Silas was staring through the windshield at the shadow. Eyes wide, face pale. "You see it now?" Owen asked. "I see it? What the hell is that?" "No idea. It wasn't visible from back where you were?" "No, I couldn't see it at all until I got in your truck. But now—" Silas pulled out his phone, aimed it at the shadow, took a photo, looked at the screen. "It's not showing up. The camera's not picking it up. Mine didn't either. But we can both see it, so it's not hallucination. It's real." The shadow was 60 feet across now, growing faster. The rotation had become so rapid that the darkness seemed to vibrate, to pulse. Owen made a decision. "We need to leave, now. Whatever this thing is, we don't want to be here when it reaches us." "Agreed. But where do we go? It's blocking the road." "We go around, off-road. There's enough clearance on the right shoulder. In this cold, if we get stuck, if we stay here, that thing's going to hit us in about 2 minutes. I'd rather take my chances with the snow." Silas nodded. "Okay, I'll follow you. Try not to get us killed. No promises." Silas jumped out, ran back to his truck. Owen watched the shadow. 70 feet now. 80. So close, he could feel something. Not heat, not cold, just a presence, a wrongness. Owen shifted into four-wheel drive, turned his wheels to the right, started rolling off the road onto the shoulder. His tires crunched through the snow. Found purchase. The truck climbed up onto the packed snow of the shoulder. Slow but steady. He angled past the shadow, kept his distance. The spinning darkness was so close now he could see details he hadn't noticed before. It wasn't just black. It had depth. Looking at it was like looking into a tunnel, into an abyss, into something infinitely deep. And at the center, barely visible, was a point of light. Not bright, just a pinprick, like a distant star, like looking at the exit of a very long tunnel from the entrance. Owen tore his eyes away, focused on the road, got past the shadow, felt his wheels find pavement again. In his mirror, he saw Silas's truck following, making the same maneuver, almost past. Then Silas's headlights flickered. Not died, not failed, just flickered. Once, twice, the shadow stopped growing, the rotation slowed, and suddenly the disk of darkness wasn't on the road anymore. It was rising, lifting off the pavement like smoke, like fog, but solid, substantial. It moved toward Silas's truck. Owen grabbed his radio. "Silas, get out of there. Drive, now." "I'm trying. Engine's cutting out." The shadow reached Silas's truck, enveloped the front end. The headlights disappeared into the blackness. Owen could see Silas through the windshield. See him fighting with his steering wheel. See him pumping the gas. See his mouth open in what was probably a yell. Then the shadow covered the whole truck. For 5 seconds, Owen couldn't see anything. Just a disk of pure black where Silas's vehicle had been. Then the shadow collapsed. Didn't fade. Didn't disperse. Just collapsed inward on itself. Compressed down to a point, to nothing. Gone. And Silas's truck was still there, sitting on the road, engine running, headlights on, everything normal. Owen jumped out of his truck, ran to Silas's door, yanked it open. Silas was gripping the steering wheel with both hands, staring straight ahead, not moving, not speaking. "Silas, you okay?" Silas blinked, turned to look at Owen. What happened?" "That shadow thing, it covered your truck. Are you hurt?" I don't know. I feel weird." "Weird how?" "Like I forgot something. Like there's something I should remember but can't." Owen helped Silas out of the truck, checked him over. No visible injuries, no signs of trauma, just shaken. "How long was I in that thing?" Silas asked. 5 seconds, maybe less. No way, it felt like hours." Owen pulled out his phone, checked the time. 3:47 a.m. That wasn't right. When he'd first stopped to look at the shadow, it had been 3:23 a.m. He'd been sitting there maybe 10 minutes before Silas showed up. Maybe another 5 while they talked, maybe 2 more getting around the shadow. The math didn't work. "What time did you stop at my truck?" Owen asked. Silas checked his watch, a mechanical watch, no battery. "My watch says 3:53 a.m., but that can't be right. We were only talking for a couple minutes. My phone says 3:47 a.m., but it should be around 3:40 a.m. based on elapsed time." They looked at each other. 6 minutes, Silas said quietly. "We lost 6 minutes. 7, if your watch is right. But we both remember everything. There's no gap, no missing time like you hear about in stories." "No, but the time still skipped forward somehow." They stood there on the frozen road, 2 trucks idling, trying to understand what had just happened. Owen walked back to where the shadow had been, looked at the pavement. No marks, no discoloration, no evidence anything unusual had occurred. But when he touched the ground, it was warm. Not hot, just warm. Maybe 40 degrees. In -29-degree weather. The heat was fading fast, already dropping toward ambient. But it had been there. Real. Measurable. "Silas, come feel this." Silas walked over, touched the pavement. "It's warm. Whatever that shadow was, it left heat behind. But shadows don't generate heat. Shadows are the absence of light, the absence of heat. This wasn't a normal shadow. No kidding." They got back in their respective trucks. Owen called a dispatch. "Dispatch, this is Part 7. Situation resolved. Continuing to Station 2. "Copy that, Part 7. What was the obstruction?" Owen looked at Silas through their windows. Saw the same uncertainty in the younger man's face that he felt himself. "What do you say? We saw a rotating shadow that didn't photograph and stole 6 minutes of time?" "False alarm," Owen said. "Ice on the road, reflecting light weird. Thought it was something it wasn't. My apologies for the confusion." "No problem. Stay safe out there." Owen and Silas drove the remaining miles to Station 2 in convoy. Neither of them talked on the radio. Neither of them wanted to discuss what had happened. Not yet. Maybe not ever. They arrived at Station 2 around 4:30 a.m., delivered their respective loads, filled out their paperwork, avoided eye contact with each other and everyone else. But before Owen left, Silas caught him in the parking lot. "We should talk about this," Silas said. "Compare notes, make sure we both saw the same thing." "I know what I saw. So do I. But are they the same thing?" Owen considered. "My room at the bunkhouse, 1 hour. Bring coffee." "Deal." The Pump Station 2 bunkhouse was a series of connected modular units heated to a comfortable 70 degrees. After hours in the Arctic cold, the warmth felt surreal, almost oppressive. Owen had trouble remembering what being warm felt like when he was out on the road. He took a shower, changed into clean clothes, tried not to think about rotating shadows and missing time. Silas knocked on his door exactly 1 hour later. Brought 2 cups of terrible station coffee and a notebook. "I wrote down everything I remember," Silas said, setting the coffee on the small table. "Timestamps, descriptions, sequence of events. Figured we should do this properly if we're going to do it at all." Owen nodded, pulled out his own phone, where he'd been making notes. "Good idea." They compared their accounts, timeline, details, physical observations. Everything matched. They'd both seen the rectangular shadow, both watched it rotate, both witnessed it grow and accelerate, both felt the wrongness of it. The only differences were minor. Owen described the shadow as absolute black. Silas called it void-like darkness. Semantic variations. Nothing substantive. "So we're not crazy," Silas said. "Whatever that was, we both experienced it the same way. Except you couldn't see it from your truck initially," Owen pointed out. "Only after you got in mine." "True. Why do you think that is?" "Maybe proximity. Maybe my headlights were hitting it at a specific angle that made it visible. When you were behind me, your angle was different. But once I was in your truck, I could see it clearly. And even after I got back in my truck, I could still see it. Like once I knew it was there, I couldn't unsee it." Owen sipped his terrible coffee. "The cameras couldn't see it at all, though. That bothers me more than anything. Same. That and the missing time. 6 minutes. 7 on my watch. But we don't remember losing that time. There's no blank spot in our memory. We remember the entire sequence of events. So, where did those minutes go?" Neither of them had an answer. Silas pulled up his phone. "I've been researching, trying to find similar reports. Turns out there are a lot of them. Here? On the pipeline? Everywhere. But yeah, several along the pipeline route specifically. Strange shadows, missing time, equipment malfunctions. All the same basic pattern. Any explanations? Lots of theories. None proven. Ball lightning, plasma phenomena, atmospheric distortions, quantum fluctuations, mass hallucination, government experiments, alien probes. Take your pick. What do you think it was?" Silas shrugged. "I don't know, but I know it was real. It generated heat. It affected our vehicles. It somehow moved time forward. That's not hallucination. That's not atmospheric distortion. So, what do we do about it? Document it, report it properly. Make sure there's an official record." Owen shook his head. "They won't believe us. You heard dispatch. They already think I was tired and seeing things. So we don't tell them what we think we saw. We tell them what we measured, the warm spot on the road, the equipment malfunctions, the time discrepancy, observable facts. Let them draw their own conclusions. And if they decide we're unreliable witnesses, then we find other witnesses. We're not the first people this has happened to. We won't be the last." Owen thought about that. About all the reports Silas had found. About the pattern of sightings along the pipeline route. "There's a woman," Owen said slowly. "Works in the Alyeska archives, Emma White. She's been collecting reports of unusual incidents. Published a bunch of them online a few months back. I saw that. Got taken down pretty fast, though. Because the company threatened legal action. But she backed up everything, multiple copies. Other people mirrored the site. It's still out there if you know where to look. Think she'd be interested in our account?" "I think she'd be very interested." They spent the next hour writing up a detailed report. No speculation, no interpretation, just observations, measurements, and timeline. A rotating rectangular shadow appeared on the Dalton Highway at mile marker 103 at approximately 3:23 a.m. Shadow visible to human observers but not to digital cameras. Shadow exhibited rotation growth and movement inconsistent with normal physical properties of shadows. Shadow-generated heat measured at 40 degrees Fahrenheit in -29-degree ambient conditions. Observers experienced unexplained time advancement of 6 to 7 minutes with no gap in memory. Shadow disappeared after enveloping vehicle, leaving no physical evidence except residual heat. Facts, just facts. Silas sent it to Emma White's contact email. Owen sent a copy to his own personal archive. Now what? Silas asked. Now we wait, see if she responds, see if anyone else reports similar incidents. And if this happens again, if we see that shadow or something like it, then we document it, record everything we can, try to understand what it is and what it wants. Assumes it wants something. Everything wants something, even if it's just to exist. They sat in silence for a while, drinking bad coffee, processing what they'd witnessed. Finally, Silas said, "I've driven the Hall Road for 3 years. Never seen anything like this. Never even heard rumors about anything like this. You? 6 years for me, and no, nothing even close. So, why now? Why tonight?" Owen had been wondering the same thing. Why had the shadow appeared when it did? Why in that specific location? Why visible to them but not to cameras? "Maybe we just got unlucky," Owen said. "Wrong place, wrong time. Or maybe we were meant to see it. Maybe there's a reason it appeared to us specifically. I don't believe in destiny. Neither do I. But I believe in patterns, and this feels like part of a pattern." Owen's phone buzzed. Email notification. He checked it. Emma White had responded. Already. The message was brief. "I believe you. Others have seen similar things. We need to talk. Are you available for a video call?" Owen showed the message to Silas. "She responded in less than an hour," Silas said. That was fast. Too fast, unless she was already awake and monitoring her email. At 5 a.m.? Some people don't sleep well after seeing things they can't explain. Silas nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm guessing tonight's going to be one of those nights for me, too." Owen typed a response. "Available now if you are." The reply came back in seconds. "Give me your number." 2 minutes later, Owen's phone rang. He answered on speaker so Silas could hear. "This is Owen." "Owen, this is Emma White. Is this a good time?" "As good as any." "Okay, before we start, I need to confirm. Are you alone? Is this conversation private?" Owen looked at Silas. "I'm with Silas Brandt. He was there. He saw everything I saw." "Good. Multiple witnesses make your account much more credible. Can I record this conversation?" "Yes." "Thank you. Okay, tell me everything. Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out." They talked for 90 minutes. Sarah asked detailed questions, made them clarify timestamps, had them describe the shadow's appearance from multiple angles, pressed them on the missing time. "This is the 4th report of a rotating shadow I've received," Sarah said when they finished. The other 3 were all along the pipeline route. Different locations, different dates, but same basic description. Rectangular darkness, rotation, growth, time distortion. "Did the other witnesses experience missing time?" Owen asked. 2 of them did. One lost 4 minutes. Another lost 11 minutes. The third couldn't confirm time loss because his watch had stopped. "Any theories on what causes it?" "Nothing definitive. But the pattern suggests something that's interacting with our physical reality in ways we don't understand. The shadows appear to be, I don't know, portals, projections, manifestations of something from somewhere else." "That sounds like science fiction," Silas said. I know, but what other explanation fits the facts? These shadows violate basic physics. They generate effects without corresponding causes. They interact with time in impossible ways. If they're natural phenomena, they're unlike anything ever documented. And if they're not natural, Owen asked, then they're artificial, created, intentional, which raises even more questions. Like, who created them and why? Exactly. They talked for another 30 minutes. Sarah shared details from other reports, stories of lights, shadows, missing time, strange symbols, a pattern of inexplicable events stretching back decades along the pipeline route. The company knows about this, Sarah said. They have to. Too many reports, too many witnesses, but they're not doing anything about it. What could they do? Owen asked. If these things are beyond our understanding, they could at least acknowledge it, warn people, take precautions. Instead, they're burying reports and intimidating witnesses into silence. Are we in danger? For talking to you? Probably not. They can't fire everyone who reports something unusual. Too many people. Too much publicity. But you might face pressure to recant. To say you were mistaken, or tired, or affected by the cold. We're not recanting, Silas said firmly. We know what we saw. Good, because the more people speak up, the harder it becomes to suppress this. Eventually, the truth will be too big to hide. After the call ended, Owen and Silas sat in silence for a long time. You think she's right? Silas finally asked. That these shadows are artificial? Created by something intelligent? I don't know what I think, Owen admitted. A week ago, I would have said it was impossible. Now, I don't know what's possible anymore. Me neither. They parted ways around 7 a.m. Silas headed to the bunkhouse for sleep. Owen had another delivery to make. A return trip south with empty containers. He didn't want to get back on the road. Didn't want to drive through the darkness where shadows could appear and steal time. But he had a job. A responsibility. So he climbed back in his truck, started the engine, and headed south on the Dalton Highway. The sun wouldn't rise for another 3 hours. Plenty of time for anything to happen. Owen made it back to Fairbanks without incident. No shadows, no missing time. Just a long, cold drive through the dark. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The road looked the same. The truck handled the same. Everything was normal, except it wasn't. Now he knew what could be out there. Now he'd seen proof that reality was stranger than he'd ever imagined. Now every shadow looked suspicious. Every dark patch on the road made his heart race. He filed his delivery report, headed home to his small apartment, tried to sleep, couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the rotating shadow, saw it growing, saw it swallowing Silas's truck, felt the wrongness of it. Around noon, his phone rang. Silas, you sleep? Silas asked. No, you? No, every time I try, I keep seeing that thing. Same. Look, I've been thinking. We need to go back. Owen sat up. Back where? To mile marker 103, where we saw the shadow. Maybe there's evidence we missed. Something we can test or measure or document. It's been hours. If there was evidence, it's probably gone by now. Probably, but we need to check. I won't be able to rest until I know for sure. Owen understood. He felt the same compulsion, the need to verify, to confirm, to understand. Okay, he said. When? Tonight, after dark, same conditions as when we saw it. You think it'll appear again? I have no idea, but if it does, we'll be ready this time. They made plans. Met at the equipment depot at 9 p.m. Loaded Owen's truck with monitoring devices. thermal cameras, radiation detectors, EMF meters. Regular cameras with different types of film and sensors. If the shadow appeared again, they'd document every measurable aspect of it. They drove north together. Silas rode with Owen this time. They wanted to stay together, to maintain communication, to avoid another incident like the shadow enveloping Silas's truck. The road was empty. Temperature had dropped to -33 degrees. Clear sky, no wind, perfect visibility, perfect conditions for seeing things that shouldn't exist. They reached mile marker 103 around 11 p.m., pulled over, set up their equipment on the side of the road. Then they waited. Midnight came. Nothing. 1 a.m., nothing. 2 a.m., still nothing. "Maybe it's not going to show," Silas said around 2:30 a.m. Maybe it was a one-time thing. Maybe. But Owen didn't believe that. The shadow had been too deliberate, too purposeful. It wasn't random. It was part of something larger. At 2:47 a.m., the EMF meter spiked. Silas grabbed it. "We've got readings, electromagnetic activity way above normal." Owen scanned the road, didn't see anything yet. "Where's it coming from?" "Hard to tell. The readings diffuse, spread out over a wide area." Then Owen saw it, not the rotating shadow. Something different, a point of light, small, white, hovering about 20 feet off the ground, maybe 100 yards ahead. "You see that?" Owen asked. "I see it." The point of light split, became 2 points, then 4, then 8. They spread out horizontally, forming a line across the road, evenly spaced, perfectly aligned. "Get the cameras rolling," Owen said. Silas activated all their recording devices. Everything's running. The points of light began to move. They didn't float or drift. They moved with purpose, descended toward the road in perfect synchronization, touched down. Where each light touched, a shadow appeared. Not a normal shadow. These were like the rotating shadow they'd seen before. Perfect rectangles of absolute darkness. But these weren't rotating. They were stable, stationary. 8 rectangles of black on the white-gray road, arranged in a perfectly straight line. "What are they doing?" Silas whispered. "I don't know, but document everything. Angles, spacing, dimensions." The shadows began to pulse, slow at first, a gentle darkening and lightening. All 8 in perfect sync, like a heartbeat, like breathing. Then they started to rise. The shadows lifted off the road, became 3-dimensional, rectangular prisms of darkness standing upright. About 8 feet tall, 4 feet wide, 2 feet deep. They looked like doorways, or portals, or windows into somewhere else. Owen realized he could see through them. Not clearly, but when he looked at a shadow, he could see something beyond it. Something that wasn't the road or the landscape behind. He saw movement, shapes, geometry that didn't make sense, like looking at a structure designed by someone who didn't understand 3-dimensional space. "Are you seeing this?" Owen asked. "I'm seeing it, but I don't understand what I'm seeing." One of the rectangular shadows moved, slid sideways along the road. Smooth, silent, left no trail. Just repositioned itself about 10 feet from where it had been. Then another shadow moved, then another. They were rearranging themselves, creating a new pattern. No longer a straight line, now a curve, an arc. "They're forming something," Silas said, "a shape." The 8 shadows arranged themselves into a semicircle, all facing inward, all perpendicular to the road. In the center of the semicircle, something appeared. Not solid, not quite real, just a suggestion of form. A silhouette. Humanoid, but wrong. too tall, too thin, moving in a way that made Owen's eyes hurt to watch. "There's something in there," Owen breathed. "I see it. What is it?" "I don't know, but it's aware of us." The figure turned, looked directly at Owen's truck. Even from 100 yards away, even through the darkness and the strange shadows, Owen could feel its attention, its focus. It raised one arm, pointed at the truck. Owen's headlights died. Not just the headlights, all the electrical systems. Engine still running, but everything else dead. The monitoring equipment shut off, cameras stopped recording. Even the digital dashboard went dark. Only mechanical systems still functioned. Engine, transmission, basic hydraulics. "We've lost everything," Silas said. His voice was tight, controlled, barely hiding panic. "I know. Stay calm." The figure in the center of the shadow semicircle began to walk. Not toward them. Toward the pipeline. It moved through one of the rectangular shadows, stepped into it like walking through a doorway, and disappeared. 5 seconds later, it reappeared, emerged from a different shadow. Now it was standing next to the pipeline, 50 feet from the road. It touched the pipeline. Where it touched, light spread. Not the shadow's darkness, but actual light. Bright orange-yellow. It flowed along the pipeline surface like liquid, like fire without heat. The light spread in both directions, north and south, following the curve of the pipe, accelerating. Miles of pipeline lighting up in sequence. Owen could see it stretching away into the distance. Could see the orange glow racing along the structure. Could see it disappearing over the horizon and presumably continuing beyond. "What's it doing?" Silas asked. "Marking it, like before, like what Sarah told us about. It's leaving signs." The figure pulled its hand away from the pipeline. The light stopped spreading but didn't fade. Miles of glowing orange pipeline stretching through the darkness. The figure turned back toward the shadows. Walked through one, disappeared again. This time it didn't reappear. The shadows collapsed. All 8 at once. Didn't fade or disperse, just compressed. Imploded inward to nothing in an instant. The points of light that had created them shot upward. Straight up, fast. Gone into the sky in seconds. Owen's truck's electrical systems came back online. Headlights blazed. Dashboard lit up. Cameras restarted. Everything returned to normal, except the pipeline. The orange glow remained, visible for miles in both directions, pulsing gently, creating enough light to illuminate the surrounding landscape. Owen put the truck in gear, drove toward the pipeline, stopped about 20 feet away. The glow was definitely real, definitely physical. He could see it reflecting off the snow, creating shadows, generating actual light. He got out, walked to the pipeline, reached out and touched the glowing section. It was warm, not hot, just pleasantly warm. Like touching sun-heated metal on a summer day. Impossible in minus 33-degree weather. Silas joined him, pulled out a thermal camera, pointed it at the pipeline. 38 degrees Fahrenheit, Silas said. The metal's warm, measurably, verifiably warm. How? I have no idea. There's no heat source. The glow isn't generating heat, it's the result of heat. But where's the heat coming from? They documented everything. Took photos from multiple angles, recorded video, measured the temperature gradient. Checked the extent of the glowing section. It stretched as far as they could see in both directions. Tens of miles at least, possibly hundreds. All of it glowing with that same orange light, all of it warm to the touch. "We need to report this," Silas said. "This isn't just a weird shadow. This is affecting the actual infrastructure. The pipeline. Owen nodded, called dispatch on his CB radio. Dispatch, this is Parts 7. We have a situation at mile marker 103. Need to report unusual activity on the pipeline. Go ahead, Parts 7. The pipeline is glowing. Orange light. Visible for miles. Also showing elevated temperature readings. Approximately 38 degrees Fahrenheit and minus 33 degree ambient. Silence. Then, Part 7, can you repeat that? The pipeline is glowing and warm. We have visual confirmation from 2 witnesses and thermal measurements. Stand by. They waited. 5 minutes, 10. The pipeline continued to glow, continued to pulse, continued to generate warmth. Finally, the radio crackled. Part 7, this is Station 3 Supervisor. We're showing normal readings on all pipeline monitors. Temperature, pressure, flow rate, everything's nominal. That's impossible. We're looking right at it. It's glowing. I understand what you think you're seeing, but our instruments show no anomalies. The pipeline is functioning normally. Then your instruments are wrong. Part 7, I need you to clear the area. Return to your assigned route. We'll send a crew to investigate in the morning. This needs immediate attention. Whatever's causing this glow could be affecting pipeline integrity. Part 7, this is a direct order. Clear the area. Return to base. That's final. Owen wanted to argue, wanted to refuse. But arguing with supervisors over the radio was a good way to lose your job. Copy that, he said. Clearing the area. He looked at Silas. They don't believe us. Their instruments don't show anything. To them, the pipeline's fine. But it's not fine. We can see it. We can feel it. I know. But what can we do? Owen thought about that. Thought about the figure that had emerged from the shadows. Thought about Sarah's research. Thought about all the witnesses who'd been dismissed and ignored. We document everything, Owen said. Every observation, every measurement, every piece of evidence, and we share it with anyone who'll listen. Eventually, someone will have to take this seriously. They spent another hour at the site, took samples of the glowing metal, recorded detailed notes, captured the pulsing light pattern on video. Then, reluctantly, they left. As they drove away, Owen watched the glowing pipeline in his mirror, watched it stretch away into the distance, a beacon in the darkness, a message written in light, but a message saying what, and meant for whom? The pipeline stopped glowing around 4 a.m. Owen and Silas had been watching from a safe distance, monitoring, documenting. The orange light had pulsed for exactly 97 minutes before suddenly going dark. Not fading, just off, instant. They drove back to the site. The pipeline was cold again. Ambient temperature, no residual heat, no evidence of the glow except their photos and videos. It's like it never happened, Silas said. But we have proof, visual evidence, temperature readings, timestamps. Will it be enough? Owen didn't answer. He didn't know. They returned to Fairbanks around 8 a.m., both exhausted, both running on adrenaline and caffeine. Neither willing to sleep until they'd secured their evidence. Owen made copies, digital and physical, stored them in multiple locations, cloud servers, external drives, even burned some to DVDs. If someone tried to delete or confiscate their documentation, they'd fail. Too many copies, too many backup locations. Silas did the same, then sent everything to Emma White. Her response came within minutes. This is the clearest documentation I've ever seen. Thank you, this is going to change everything. But it didn't. Owen and Silas filed official reports, submitted their evidence, requested a formal investigation. The company's response was predictable. After thorough analysis of the submitted materials, we have determined that the reported phenomena were the result of equipment malfunction and misinterpretation of natural atmospheric effects. Pipeline integrity checks show no anomalies. All systems are functioning within normal parameters. No further action is required. Translation: we don't believe you. Stop making trouble. Owen expected this, but it still stung. They didn't even look at the evidence, Silas said when he got the same response. The temperature readings, the videos, none of it matters to them. Because acknowledging it means admitting there's something they can't control, something they can't explain. So what do? What we said we'd do: document, share, make it impossible to ignore. Sarah published their account on her website, included selected photos and videos, testimonials from both witnesses, technical analysis of the thermal data. Within days, it had been viewed thousands of times, shared across social media, discussed on forums, analyzed by amateur investigators and professional researchers alike. Some people believed, some people mocked. Most people didn't know what to think. But the important thing was that people were talking about it. The story was out there. The evidence was accessible. You couldn't suppress it anymore. 3 weeks after the incident, Owen got a message from Silas. "I'm seeing them again. The shadows. Different location, but same phenomenon. Can you come?" Owen was on the road within an hour. They met at mile marker 187. Different section of the pipeline, different landscape, but unmistakable. 3 rectangular shadows hovering over the road, rotating slowly, perfectly black. This time, they were ready. They set up their equipment quickly, documented from multiple angles, recorded continuously. The shadows performed the same sequence: rotation, growth, separation into multiple segments, formation of patterns. But this time, something different happened. One of the shadows descended, touched the ground next to Owen's truck, became a doorway, a portal, and something came through. Not the tall figure they'd seen before, something smaller, more compact. Humanoid, but clearly not human. It stood maybe 4 feet tall, thin, wearing something that looked like a suit but moved wrong. Too fluid, too responsive, like it was part of the being rather than clothing. The face, if you could call it a face, was smooth, featureless. No eyes, no mouth, no nose. Just a curved surface that somehow suggested awareness. It looked at Owen, then at Silas, then at the cameras. It understood they were documenting. The being reached up to its chest, touched something. A device, a control. All the cameras stopped working, not the power. The devices were still on, but the recording functions failed. Memory cards corrupted, files deleted. Everything they'd captured in the last 30 seconds just gone. The being tilted its head, an almost human gesture. Curious, amused, impossible to tell. Then it walked back through the shadow portal and disappeared. The shadows collapsed, vanished, left no trace. Silas checked his equipment. Everything's wiped. The last 30 seconds, just gone. They don't want to be recorded, Owen said. No, they're perfectly happy being seen, being witnessed, but not documented, not captured on media. Why? Because documentation can be studied, analyzed, shared with people who weren't there. They want witnesses, but not evidence. Owen thought about that. About all the reports Sarah had collected. All the witnesses who'd seen strange things but had no proof, no photos, no videos, just testimony. They're controlling the narrative, Owen said, letting us see enough to know they're real but not enough to prove it to others. But why? What's the point? Maybe they're testing us, seeing how we react, how we handle the unknown. Or maybe they're just careful. Maybe they know that solid proof would cause panic, chaos. So they reveal themselves gradually to select individuals, building up a body of witnesses who can prepare others for eventual contact. That's optimistic. Is it? Look at what's happened in the last few months. Sarah's research, our encounters, other witnesses coming forward, the stories getting bigger, more credible, more accepted. But we still have no hard proof, nothing that would convince a skeptic. Maybe hard proof isn't the point. Maybe the point is changing minds gradually, shifting perspective, making the impossible seem possible. Owen wasn't sure about that, but he couldn't deny that something was changing, not just in him, but in the broader community of pipeline workers. More people were talking openly about strange experiences. More people were sharing stories. More people were admitting they'd seen things they couldn't explain. The silence was breaking. The truth was spreading. Slowly, carefully, but inevitably. 6 months after Owen first saw the rotating shadow, he got a call from an unknown number. "Mr. Keller, this is Dr. Patricia Morrison. I'm a physicist at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I've been following your reports with great interest." "Okay," Owen said cautiously. "I'd like to study what you witnessed, scientifically, rigorously, with proper instruments and methodology. Would you be willing to work with me?" "Why? What's your angle?" "No angle, just curiosity. You've documented phenomena that violate known physics. That's worth investigating. If your observations are accurate, and I have no reason to doubt they are, then we need to revise our understanding of reality." "That's exciting. That's what I got into science for." Owen talked to Silas. They both agreed. If someone credible was willing to take them seriously, they should cooperate. Dr. Morrison brought a team. Graduate students, specialized equipment, research permits. They set up monitoring stations at multiple points along the pipeline, waited for the shadows to appear again. It took 3 weeks, but they appeared. This time, everything was documented. Every wavelength, every frequency, every measurable parameter. The shadows existed, physically, measurably. They affected electromagnetic fields, thermal signatures, gravitational readings. Everything the team monitored showed anomalies during shadow appearances. Dr. Morrison published a preliminary paper, carefully worded, conservative in conclusions, but clear in its findings. Unexplained phenomena are occurring along the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. These phenomena exhibit properties inconsistent with current physical models. Further research is warranted. It was the first peer-reviewed academic acknowledgement that something strange was happening. Other researchers started paying attention, requesting access, proposing experiments. The shadows went from urban legend to legitimate scientific mystery. The company could no longer dismiss or suppress reports. Too many witnesses, too much documentation, too much attention. They issued a new statement. Alyeska Pipeline Service Company acknowledges reports of unusual phenomena along our pipeline route. We are cooperating with academic researchers to better understand these events. The safety and integrity of our infrastructure remains our top priority. A non-commitment commitment, but better than denial. Owen and Silas became something like ambassadors, the public faces of the shadow witnesses. They gave interviews, appeared in documentaries, spoke at conferences. They never claimed to know what the shadows were, never speculated beyond their direct observations, just presented facts and let others draw conclusions. Some people called them heroes. Some called them crazy. Most just found their story fascinating. But the most important response came from other pipeline workers. Dozens of them came forward with similar stories. Shadows, lights, missing time, strange encounters, all previously unreported because they feared ridicule or retaliation. Now they had permission to speak, had a community of witnesses, had validation. The true scope of the phenomenon became clear. It wasn't isolated incidents. It was systematic, ongoing, deliberate. Something was visiting the Alaska pipeline regularly, had been for decades, was studying it, maintaining it, interacting with it in ways humans didn't understand. But why? Emma White proposed a theory. The pipeline represents one of humanity's largest technological interventions in a pristine environment. It's a wound across the landscape. Maybe these entities are caretakers, guardians. They're monitoring the pipeline to minimize its impact, repairing damage before it becomes catastrophic, protecting the land from our mistakes. Dr. Morrison had a different theory. The pipeline might be unintentionally acting as a beacon. Its magnetic signature, its thermal output, its regular geometry, all of these could be attracting attention from whatever these entities are. We're broadcasting our presence without realizing it, and something's responding. Owen didn't know which theory was correct. Maybe neither. Maybe both. But he knew one thing for certain. Humanity wasn't alone in monitoring the Trans-Alaska pipeline. And whatever was sharing that task with them was far more advanced than anyone had imagined. 2 years after Owen first saw the rotating shadow, he was driving the Hall Road on a clear winter night. Temperature minus 28 degrees. Good visibility. Normal conditions. He saw a shadow ahead, rotating, growing. The same phenomenon that had started everything. But this time, he wasn't afraid. He pulled over, set up his equipment, still carrying monitoring devices even though they never captured anything useful. Watched the shadow perform its dance. The shadow formed a doorway. The small figure emerged, the same one he'd seen months before. This time, Owen got out of his truck, stood in the minus 28-degree cold, faced the entity across 30 feet of frozen road. They looked at each other, human and something else, witness and witnessed. The entity raised one hand, not pointing, not threatening, just acknowledging. Owen raised his hand in response. The entity tilted its head. That curious gesture. Then it stepped back through the shadow and was gone. The shadow collapsed, vanished. Left Owen alone on the empty road. His time had skipped forward again. 7 minutes. He'd lost 7 minutes to whatever existed on the other side of those shadows, but he didn't mind, because he understood now. The shadows weren't dangerous, weren't hostile. They were just different. They operated by different rules, existed in different dimensions, touched our reality in ways we were only beginning to comprehend. And they'd chosen to reveal themselves, to let humans see, to start a dialogue. Not with governments, not with scientists, not with leaders, with ordinary people. Truck drivers, technicians, guards, the people who worked the pipeline, who knew the land, who might understand. Owen got back in his truck, continued his drive. The pipeline stretched ahead into the darkness, and he knew, absolutely knew, that he wasn't alone out there. Something was watching, something was waiting. Something was preparing humanity for a truth larger than anyone had imagined. The shadows were just the beginning. The thing about experiencing the impossible is that it changes you in ways you can't predict. Owen used to be a simple man. He drove trucks, he delivered parts, he went home, he slept. Repeat. Now he was something else. A witness, an ambassador between worlds. a bridge between what humanity knew and what it was about to discover. 3 years after his first encounter with the rotating shadow, Owen sat in a coffee shop in Fairbanks with Silas, Sarah, and Dr. Morrison. They met monthly now, shared updates, compared notes, discussed theories. "The pattern is becoming clearer," Dr. Morrison said, spreading documents across the table. "We've now documented 47 separate shadow events over the past 3 years, and they're not random." "We knew that," Silas said. "Yes, but now we understand the pattern. Look." She pointed to a map with marked locations. "Every shadow appearance occurs within 50 meters of a structural weakness in the pipeline. Places where stress fractures are developing, where corrosion is beginning, where future failures are most likely." Owen studied the map. "They're predicting problems. More than predicting. When we cross-reference shadow appearances with maintenance records, something remarkable emerges. Every location marked by shadows that subsequently received human maintenance showed significantly better long-term performance than predicted." "Better how?" Sarah asked. "Reduced corrosion rates, slower stress fracture development, extended operational life. It's like the shadow's presence somehow reinforces the metal structure, makes it more durable." "That's impossible," Silas said. "So are rotating shadows that don't photograph and steal time," Dr. Morrison replied with a slight smile. "We're well past the point of dismissing things as impossible." Owen sipped his coffee. "So they're maintaining the pipeline, actively keeping it functional. Why? That's the question, isn't it?" Sarah pulled out her laptop. "I've been analyzing the timeline. The shadows first appeared, at least according to documented reports, in 1974, 2 years before the pipeline started operating. They appeared along the proposed route before construction even began." "We knew that too," Silas said. "Richard Bowman's survey report." "Yes, but I found something else." Sarah turned her laptop around. "Geological surveys from the 1960s. Before anyone proposed building a pipeline. Before oil was even discovered at Prudhoe Bay. Scientists doing basic Arctic research reported strange lights and shadows along a corridor that exactly matches the pipeline route." Owen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the outside temperature. "You're saying they knew where the pipeline would be built before we decided to build it?" "I'm saying the evidence suggests they influenced where it was built. Look at the route. It's not the most direct path. It's not the easiest terrain, but it's the path that caused the least environmental damage. The path that preserved the most critical habitats. The path that avoided the most sensitive ecosystems." "You think they guided the route selection?" Dr. Morrison said slowly. "I think they made certain routes seem more appealing, more practical. Maybe they influenced survey results. Maybe they affected the engineers' calculations. Subtle changes, nothing overt, but enough to guide the decision-making process." Owen thought about the figure that had emerged from the shadow, the small being that had acknowledged him on that cold night 2 years ago. "They're not just maintaining the pipeline. They're responsible for it existing in the first place." "In a sense," Sarah said. "They allowed it to be built, maybe even encouraged it, as long as it followed their chosen path." "But why?" Silas asked again. "What do they gain from having a human pipeline cutting across Alaska?" Dr. Morrison leaned back in her chair. "I have a theory. It's speculative, but it fits the evidence." "We're listening," Owen said. "What if the pipeline serves a dual purpose? For us, it transports oil, a resource, a commodity. But for them, it might be something else entirely. A data collection system, a sensor array, 800 miles of metal running through one of Earth's most pristine environments, constantly monitoring temperature, pressure, flow dynamics. It's essentially a massive environmental monitoring station. They're using our infrastructure to study the planet, Sarah said. Or to study us, or both. Think about it. The pipeline requires constant human attention, maintenance, monitoring, interaction. They can observe how we manage technology, how we solve problems, how we adapt to challenges. Owen remembered the way the small figure had looked at him, the tilt of its head, the raised hand. They're learning from us, and we're learning from them, Silas added. By seeing the shadows, by documenting the phenomena, by gradually accepting that we're not alone. It's mutual education. First contact, Sarah whispered. This is first contact. But not the way anyone expected. Not governments meeting aliens. Not spaceships landing on the White House lawn. Just quiet observations, subtle interactions, preparing both species for eventual open dialogue. They sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop buzzed with normal conversation around them. People discussing weather, work, sports, oblivious to the fact that history was being made at this corner table. Finally, Owen spoke. How long do you think this preparation phase will last? No way to know, Esther Morrison said. Could be years, decades, generations. But I think we're approaching a threshold. The shadows are appearing more frequently. They're being more obvious, more direct. The small figure that appeared to you, Owen, that was unprecedented. Previous encounters involved shapes in the shadows, silhouettes. This was face-to-face contact. What happens when we cross that threshold? Silas asked. Either they reveal themselves fully, Sarah said, or we figure out how to communicate with them first. Owen thought about that. About standing on a frozen road in the middle of the night, raising his hand to an entity from somewhere else, the beginning of dialogue. We need to be ready, he said. When that moment comes, humanity needs to be prepared, not panicked, not hostile, ready to listen. That's why we're doing this, Dr. Morrison said, gesturing at their papers and documents. Building understanding, creating a framework for comprehension, so when contact happens, real, undeniable contact, people will have context, will have evidence of benign intention, will be ready to accept it. 4 years after his first shadow encounter, Owen was offered a new position, not with the pipeline company, with Dr. Morrison's research group at UAF. We need someone with field experience, she said. Someone who understands both the pipeline and the phenomena. Someone the other workers trust. That's you, Owen. He considered it. Leaving the road. Leaving his truck. Becoming a researcher instead of a driver. But the work was important. More important than delivering parts. He accepted. His first project was establishing a permanent monitoring station at mile marker 103. The site of his first encounter. The place where everything had started. They built a small facility, heated, equipped with every type of sensor and recording device available. Staffed 24 hours a day by graduate students and technicians. The shadows appeared regularly there now. Almost predictably. Every 43 days, give or take a few hours. The students documented everything, built comprehensive databases, analyzed patterns. Owen visited the station weekly, checked the equipment, reviewed the data, talked to the witnesses. One night, he was there during a shadow appearance, his first time experiencing it since joining the research team. The rectangular darkness formed in the road. Began its rotation, but this time it didn't grow, didn't accelerate, just maintained a steady spin, constant, unchanging. The graduate student on duty, a young woman named Maya, was frantically adjusting instruments. We're getting readings I've never seen before. The electromagnetic signature is off the charts. But look at this. She pointed to a spectrometer display. The shadow is absorbing light across all wavelengths, all of them, including frequencies we can't see. It's like a perfect black hole for electromagnetic radiation. Except we can see it, Owen said. Only because our brains are interpreting the absence of light as visible darkness. But the instruments show it's absorbing everything, even cosmic background radiation, even quantum field fluctuations. Owen watched the rotating shadow. What's it doing with all that energy? That's the question. Energy can't be destroyed, only transformed. So, where is it going? As if in response, the shadow stopped rotating, froze in place, perfectly still. Then it began to glow. Not bright, just a faint luminescence around the edges. Blue-white, like starlight, like the light from the point in the center of the rotating shadow Owen had seen years ago. "Are you getting this?" Owen asked. "Every instrument is recording. This is new. This hasn't happened before." The glow intensified, brightened. The shadow's darkness remained absolute in the center, but the edges blazed with increasing light. And then, something emerged. Not the small figure Owen had seen before. Something larger, more complex, a structure. Geometric, crystalline, made of light and darkness interwoven in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "What is that?" Maya whispered. "I don't know, but document everything." The structure hung in the air above the shadow, rotating slowly, each facet reflecting light in impossible ways, creating colors Owen didn't have names for, creating shapes that existed in more than 3 dimensions. Maya's instruments were going haywire. The energy readings are impossible. We're measuring output that exceeds input by orders of magnitude. It's violating thermodynamics. It's creating energy from nothing. Or drawing it from somewhere else, Owen said. The structure pulsed. Once, twice, 3 times. And with each pulse, Owen felt something. Not physical, not mental. Something else. A sensation he'd never experienced before. Like being seen. Not with eyes, but with something deeper. Like being understood completely. Every thought, every memory, every hope and fear. It was terrifying and comforting at the same time. The structure collapsed. Imploded back into the shadow. The glow faded. The shadow returned to its steady rotation. Then it vanished. Just gone. Instant. Owen and Maya stood in silence. The monitoring station's instruments slowly returned to normal readings. "Did that just happen?" Maya asked. Owen checked his watch. 47 minutes had passed. He'd thought it was maybe 5 minutes. "We lost time again," he said. "How much?" 42 minutes according to my watch. "How much did it feel like?" 5 minutes, 10 at most. Owen smiled. "Welcome to the club. Your first missing time experience." Maya looked at her instruments. "The recordings will tell us what happened during those 42 minutes. But Owen already knew what they'd find. The cameras would show the shadow appearing and disappearing with nothing in between. The sensors would show a gap in data. The missing time wouldn't be recorded by machines. Only humans experienced the missing time. Only human consciousness was affected. Because the phenomenon wasn't about machines. It was about minds. About awareness. About bridging the gap between different types of consciousness. 5 years after his first encounter, Owen was invited to speak at a United Nations subcommittee meeting on unexplained phenomena. The shadows had gone mainstream. Too many witnesses, too much documentation, too much evidence to ignore. He stood before diplomats and scientists from 40 countries and told his story, showed his evidence, explained what the research had discovered. The shadows are not a threat, he concluded. They're an invitation. An invitation to expand our understanding of reality, to accept that we share this universe with other intelligences, to prepare for eventual contact. The questions came fast. Have you communicated with these entities? Not in words, but yes, through actions, through acknowledgement, through mutual observation. What do they want? I don't know, but based on their behavior, I believe they want what we want. Understanding, coexistence, progress. How can you be sure they're not hostile? Because they've had countless opportunities to harm us and never have. They've been interacting with our infrastructure for 50 years. If they wanted to damage the pipeline, cause accidents, hurt people, they could have. They haven't. Instead, they've maintained it, protected it, helped us. Why don't they reveal themselves fully? Maybe they're waiting for us to be ready. Maybe they're following protocols we don't understand. Maybe gradual contact is safer than sudden revelation. I don't have all the answers. But I know we're on a path towards something momentous. And we need to walk that path carefully, thoughtfully, without fear. The meeting lasted 6 hours. When it ended, Owen was exhausted, but hopeful. Because the conversation was happening, at the highest levels, seriously, thoughtfully. Humanity was preparing. 6 years after his first encounter with the rotating shadow, Owen stood at mile marker 103 on a clear winter night. Temperature minus 30 degrees. Stars brilliant overhead. He was alone. No monitoring equipment, no cameras, no witnesses, just him and the road and the possibility of shadows. He waited. Around midnight, the shadow appeared, formed in its usual spot. Began its rotation, familiar now, almost comforting. Owen walked toward it, slowly, carefully. No fear, just curiosity. The shadow stopped rotating, became still. A doorway. The small figure emerged, the same one he'd seen before. 4 feet tall, smooth suit, featureless face. They stood facing each other, human and other, witness and mystery. Owen raised his hand, palm forward, universal gesture of peace. The figure raised its hand, mirroring him, learning, responding. Then it did something new. It pointed at the sky, at a specific star, bright, distinct. Owen looked up, followed the direction. The star twinkled in the Arctic night. When he looked back, the figure was gone. The shadow collapsed, vanished. But Owen understood that star, that specific point of light, that's where they came from. That's home. And now he knew. Not just that they existed, not just that they were here, but where they came from, where they'd return to, where humanity might someday follow. The invitation was clear. Come find us, when you're ready, when you can cross the distance, when you've grown enough. We'll be waiting. Owen returned to Fairbanks, told Dr. Morrison what had happened, told her about the star. She identified it. A G-type main sequence star, similar to our sun, 47 light-years away, within the realm of possibility for eventual human travel. Not easy, not soon, but possible. They're giving us a destination, she said, a goal, something to work toward. And a reason to keep growing, Owen added, to keep developing, to keep advancing our technology and understanding. How long do you think it'll take? Generations, centuries maybe. But we have time. They're patient. They've proven that. Sarah published the discovery, the star, the implied invitation, the long-term nature of the contact. The response was mixed. Some people embraced it. Others denied it. Most just filed it away as an interesting possibility for distant future generations. But the seed was planted. Humanity had a destination, a goal beyond our solar system, a reason to keep reaching outward. The shadows continued to appear, continued to mark the pipeline, continued to interact with those who were willing to see. And slowly, gradually, humanity adjusted to the new reality. We weren't alone. We never had been. And that was okay. More than okay. It was the beginning of something wonderful. Owen kept driving the Hall Road. Even as a researcher, he took regular trips, maintained his connection to the road, to the pipeline, to the shadows. Because this was his calling, his purpose. To bridge worlds, to witness, to understand, and to help humanity take its next step into a universe far stranger and more beautiful than anyone had imagined. The shadows were just the beginning. The real journey was still ahead.